Good afternoon, and we welcome each and every one of you today to the Pinellas County Board of County Commissioners meeting for Tuesday, February 26th. We're proud to have the invocation led today by our own Commissioner Ken Welch, and then thereafter the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Commissioner Peters. Please stand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, a day that you have made, and we rejoice and are glad in it. We thank you for our community, for this nation. Father, help us to look beyond our individual wants and needs and do the things that are best for this community, both today and tomorrow. Pray for all that come before us, and we ask that you would bless this commission with grace, with wisdom and understanding. We pray these in all things in your name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have one presentation, Florida Surveyors and Mappers Week proclamation.
Just gets better every day.
I'd like to ask the Division Director for Survey and Mapping, Susan Schlapp, and the following individuals to join me at the podium. Penny Simone, James Neal, Greg Duke, Jared Phillips, Robert Breedlove, Greg Nipper, and Catherine Bosco. They will be accepting the proclamation on behalf of all surveyors and mappers in Pinellas County. Hi again. Hello.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Good. Hi.
We need
Hello.
to split up on sides.
Hi. Hello.
Yeah, come on around.
You want to come to this side? Hi. Hello. Hello again. Well, I had the pleasure, along with the County Administrator Barry Burton, of on President's Day, it was an in-service day, so we went around to different county departments, and hands down, they provided the best lunch. They had a chili cook-off, and so Barry and I arrived at just the right moment so that we could enjoy tasting them and then finding out later what the winners were. And I thought it was also really cool because they've been working with Pinellas Technical College to create a pathway for students to get into the profession. And I think that is such an honorable mission and so important to Pinellas County. It looks like you were the leader in that regard, or one of them?
No, I'm just one participant.
Okay, but anyway, so thank you, because what you do is critical for each and every day to Pinellas County. So surveyors and mappers are counted among the founding leaders of our country, and were instrumental in the formation of the layout of property boundaries in the United States, which have provided our citizens the enjoyment of property ownership. When you think about that, that's pretty incredible. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and other former presidents of the United States served their fellow colonists as surveyors. And the citizens of Pinellas County recognize the valuable contributions of the surveying and mapping profession to history, development, and the quality of life in Florida and the United States of America, and make important decisions based on the knowledge and expertise of licensed surveyors and mappers. And the Florida Surveying and Mapping Society's Tampa Bay chapter and at least 100 Florida licensed professional surveyors and mappers and 32 Florida licensed surveying and mapping businesses are located here in Pinellas County. And the surveying and mapping profession requires special education, training, obviously the knowledge of mathematics, the related physical and applied sciences, and requirements of law for evidence. And surveyors and mappers are uniquely qualified and licensed to determine and describe land and water boundaries for the management of natural resources and the protection of private and public property rights, which is very crucial. And the continued advancements in instrumentation have required the surveyor and mapper not only to be able to understand and implement the methods of the past, but also to learn and employ modern technology and finding solutions to meet the challenges of the future. Now, therefore be it proclaimed by the Pinellas County Board of County Commissioners that the week of March 17th through March 23rd, 2019 be recognized as Florida Surveyors and Mappers Week. And so we have a signed proclamation on behalf of the County Commission. I just read you the language, and who would like to speak?
On behalf of all the surveyors and mappers and professional land surveyors here, I'd like to thank you for recognizing the importance of our career choice and what we do. And on a more personal note, as a Division Director of Public Works Survey and Mapping, I'd like to thank you for your ongoing support and your understanding of the value that's added by having an engaged survey and mapping division in Pinellas County projects and programs and ideas. And I wanted to thank Adi also for coming, our Public Works Director, in support of us today.
Well, thank you. I think every time that you all come forward in front of us, we find out more and more what you do for us every day. And like I mentioned earlier, it's really crucial, and it's also very much appreciated. So thank you all.
All right, I'll give you a free count. 1, 2, 3. One, two, three. One more. 1, 2, 3. Thanks.
Yeah, Jules is back there, sneaking in.
Perfectly appropriate.
And item 2 on our agenda is a partner presentation, and we're pleased, very pleased to have Mike Sutton here, who is the Chief Executive Officer for Habitat for Humanity of Pinellas County.
All right, well, we'll get this fired up, but good afternoon, and thank you so much for allowing us to come speak for a few minutes about our amazing partnership between Habitat for Humanity here in Pinellas County and the county. So on behalf of Habitat, we want to thank you all. Habitat's celebrating 34 years of service here in Pinellas County in 2019. We're coming off of a year where Habitat built 60 homes throughout our county. Throughout our 34-year history, we've completed 515 homes with the amazing support we continue to receive in our community, and we plan to build 65 homes in 2019 as families that we partner with realize their dream of home ownership. I guess I don't have a PowerPoint here. Yeah. Well, we'll just go without the PowerPoint. You have it in front of you, yeah. So the Habitat program continues to make great strides in providing affordable housing solutions to local families. It's important for us to continue to spread the word in the community that our program is not a handout, but a hand up. Our 515 plus families are proof of that. Each family has contributed hundreds of sweat equity hours in the Habitat program, completed a series of 20 classes designed to help them become more knowledgeable about home ownership and finances. And most importantly, through Habitat, they now have a safe, decent, affordable place to call home. Over the years, Habitat for Humanity has received $1,151,000 in SHIP funding towards from Pinellas County. This is why we urge the commission to continue to support the Sadowski Housing Trust Fund by encouraging our lawmakers in Tallahassee to use the Housing Trust Fund dollars for the intended purpose of affordable and workforce housing. With these SHIP dollars, Habitat was able to collaborate on a number of projects within the county, including the Haven Ridge project in Lealman, which consisted of 9 townhomes and 6 single-family homes. We've constructed 14 new homes in the Dansville community, with 6 more under construction. This is an area of the community where the county owns 40 parcels of property, and we've seen the home values increase 25% since the first home we constructed there less than 2 years ago. One of my proudest moments as CEO of Habitat involves the work that we've done in the Ridgecrest community. The county graciously donated 8 vacant lots to us in 2018, thanks to the aggressive purchasing of property in that neighborhood, we've completed 15 new homes, and we have another 8 under construction currently. And we're actually in negotiations to purchase another handful of lots. Every time Habitat completes a home in Pinellas County, it is a celebration, but the effects are felt for generations. The monthly mortgage payments help Habitat build more homes and sustain our program into the future. Today, we are here today to share that with the Commission that our 500 plus Habitat homeowners contributed $653,623.76 in property taxes in 2018, which is a 100% increase from 2017. We are so proud of our homeowners. The Habitat program allows them the opportunity not only to raise their children in a wonderful home, but provides them the opportunity to give back in our community. So again, on behalf of our organization, thank you all so much for the continued support. I have a couple of my colleagues here, Allison Riley, who's our VP of Corporate Partnerships, Gabby Camacho is our VP of Construction, Patty Sawyer is our Chief Program Officer, Ken Rush is our COO, and Vito Sheely is our Government Affairs Coordinator. And we are here to present the county with a check, a big check, in the amount of $653,000, and more importantly, to do a photo op.
Awesome.
So I think this deserves us all going down to the floor and being together.
Okay, what are we doing, going down there?
Guys, go through.
Really gotta get all the way this way.
Yeah. I'm just here to cash it.
On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3.
Great job.
So Steph said they took a picture now and twos.
Okay, next on our agenda is, unfortunately had to be canceled. Our Pure Pinellas presentation will be rescheduled for another time. Thank you, Commissioner Justice. We'll look forward to that. Moving on to the consent agenda, is there anything to be pulled?
Literally seen.
Move approval.
May I just, okay, great. I do have a question, and it kind of is on the heels of having Habitat here today. So, agenda item 11 is a conveyance of extruded properties to the city of Seminole and the city of St. Pete. I realize that we have this process, but is there any way we could send a letter encouraging them to make these affordable housing developments and perhaps work with someone like Habitat or somebody else in the community to do that?
Can certainly look into that.
I mean, I know at least one of these lots was probably not large enough, but one did look like it was large enough to accommodate a home. And it might be just a way to remind them that, you know, this is maybe a good reuse for this land. But thank you. Okay, let's open up the voting board, please.
Motion?
This on consent?
I'm not sure.
I made the
I think I might
motion.
have.
Commissioner Eggers, second. Commissioner Peters.
But I don't have it on mine. Oh, I don't either, I
Julie?
bet. Do I need to close out and go back in, Mike?
Would you, Commissioner
Yeah,
Gerard,
Joy.
Commissioner Long, should I just coordinate?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Okay, there we go. It's a unanimous approval of the consent agenda. Thank you very much.
Madam
Moving-
Chair, I did have a question.
Yes.
Just on the HFA item, I think it's on 21. And it's related to the
We,
land trust.
well, consent agenda was just through items 15. Should we wait till we're
21 through
on?
21.
It's through
Those
21.
items were on 21. I mean,
Oh.
or through 21.
Sorry. Okay, sorry about that. 21 then?
Yeah, just, and it relates to the discussion we had during the work session where there was still 5 million or so left in the land trust. Remember we talked about that?
Catherine is here.
And I just want to see if Catherine had any insights on that.
Yeah, I sure did miss that.
Catherine Driver with the Housing Finance Authority?
Howdy.
Yes.
So the housing land trust, there's still about 5 million
I thought it
remaining
was
in that?
closer to 3 million that was available, but I'll have to check with the folks at the county to verify that. But we do have some applications that are in process of being reviewed, so, but we probably still have a couple million that'll last us through the end of the year and maybe into next year.
Okay, and this was out of the total 15 million?
15, and then I
Yep.
think there was an extra 3 that was included last year. So I think a total of 18.
Of land trust, not housing trust fund.
Correct.
Okay.
Land trust.
And that, relates to an issue we'll be talking about later on, about the 10% spending those dollars, more quickly, rather than get to the end of the 10-year period and you still got a substantial fund there. So I was just wondering,
Right. And
was there
only-
anything we ran into that precluded us from spending those dollars earlier?
Well, we didn't really start the money until 3 years ago, spending the money till 3 years ago. So we didn't have a 10-year period to spend it. So I thought the
And that
time
was
that
by
we've had,
design?
we've done, I think, done really well, putting units out there and,
Okay, so we just got a late start.
We
out
did
of the
get a
last
late
spending.
start, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
thank you.
Thank you,
Any other
Madam Chair.
questions?
Any other questions? Okay, very good. Then moving on to the regular agenda, item 22, economic development.
Item number 22 is a resolution specifying policy goals for the 2020 through 2029 infrastructure sales tax surcharge, penny forward dedicated economic development projects and housing. This is in accordance with the guidance provided by the commission and the commitments made. And so we submit this, this resolution for your consideration.
Okay. We have several speakers on this matter, and we'll start with Kathy Filippelli. I know I mispronounced it, Filippelli? Filippelli. I did it right the first time. Yay. Somehow I never learned phonics when I was growing up.
Oh, I know. Well, we could go with the original Stokłosa in Polish, and that would even be more. I'm
Welcome.
Kathy Stokłosa Filippelli. I represent FAST.
Yes, ma'am.
And to remind some of you again that each year the way FAST works is that in the fall, all of our FAST congregants and communities meet with the community and ask them, what are you struggling with? For the past few years, every fall, we've been hearing story after story of people struggling to pay their rent. We've heard everything from young families paying so much rent that they can't afford to save for a payment, a down payment for a house, or elderly folks who own their homes but whose land rent in the mobile home park is so expensive they had to leave and were evacuated. The wait list for Section 8 affordable housing is up to 16,000 families and is currently closed and has been closed for 3 years. The price of housing in Pinellas has gone up almost 50% in the past 5 years and continues to go up month by month. We are increasingly seeing newly built high-rises throughout the county and the development of new shopping centers and luxury condos. But what about the affordable housing? Yes, we were here to see what just happened, and we're very proud, and we've met before with Habitat. What about the people what about the people who helped make the community what it is today? What about the generations of families who have lived here but are now wondering how will they afford their housing costs, and they are considering moving? People in Pinellas want to know that when they approve their taxes, they want to know where they go and are they really going where they were told they were going. There have been many situations in the past where taxpayers felt tricked by public officials. For example, the dock stamp was approved to fund Sadowski's statewide affordable housing trust fund, but we know that fund is continually raided by the state officials to pay for other things. Hopefully that will get back on track. So you can see why the people want something in writing that confirms that the 4.15% would go to affordable housing. We understand that nothing is foolproof and that future county commissioners could undo anything you guys put in place right now. However, the clearer the writing, the harder it makes for future commissions to change, and having something in writing gives community members a strong tool to use in their future advocacy efforts for affordable housing. This penny money will be spent through 2029. Many of you won't be on the county commission anymore. So, having something in writing is an important part of the documentation of your intentions and, quite frankly, part of your legacy that you will leave behind. We believe that the current county commission has been more in touch with affordable housing and the needs of the poor and working class than previous commissions. So it's very important that you do your part now to focus on what is brought to you, so for your future tenure, it outlasts in a wonderful legacy. Thank you for your work.
Thank you. Next is Reverend Kathleen Walter, and thereafter Donna Davis.
Good afternoon, commissioners and staff. As you know, I am also here representing FAST. My name is Reverend Kathleen Walter. I'm the rector of St. John's Episcopal Church in Clearwater, and I do live in the On Top of the World community here in Clearwater. I'd like to speak to the importance of allocating the 4.15% specifically to affordable housing. Although it's not officially written in the interlocal agreement, according to the August 1st, 2017 staff commission meeting notes, staff are going to be directed to plan that this money reflects a 50-50 split. The 8.3% would reflect a 50-50 split of the money for housing and economic development. You know, we've heard hundreds of stories, and we've shared those stories with you about the many families that are struggling to pay for housing here in Pinellas County. We've actually been informed that a specific group, the St. Pete Police Force, that about 75% of them cannot afford to live in the areas in which they serve. So the concern is definitely for the working, important members of our community that we have housing that can meet their needs. We are appreciative of the county's commission intention to encourage the staff to spend 4.15% of the penny funds on affordable housing in the resolution that will be presented today. We know that staff may want to use some of this affordable housing money, though, to incentivize the development of affordable housing or for economic development. But we are here to remind and encourage that that 4.15% is truly needed to go specifically toward the property for affordable housing. The other 95.75% of the Penny for Pinellas funds are available, and some of those could be used for any infrastructure improvements that may be needed. We've been assured by numerous housing staff that the housing needs in Pinellas are so great that there will be no trouble spending the upwards of $85 to $100 million for acquiring land for affordable housing if that money does become available. Housing staff have also shown that there are numerous other pots of money that can be paired with the penny funds to help developers pay for the rehabbing or building on properties acquired with the penny funding. 4.15% of the penny funding is not a lot. It is less than 5% of this funding source. It's only $82.5 million. We need this to build 7,500 or more units to address the huge need that we have here in Pinellas County. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Donna Davis, and then thereafter Judy Sharmatz, and thereafter Catherine Rosson.
Good morning,
Hi.
Commissioners. It's good to meet with you this afternoon. We've had a lot of meetings. Okay, well, why 80% of AMI is so important? Well, affordable housing money needs to be targeted to those most in need. And we do understand the importance that we also need workforce housing. But the families with the most dire need of housing are those making considerably less than the area median income. Because what's a job if you don't have a home to go home to at the end of your workday? In fact, according to the Schimberg Center, 83,000 families in our county pay more than half of their income towards rent. And 71,000 of these families make 80% or less than our area median income, which means they make about $40,000 a year. So this means, again, that 86% of families who pay more than half of their income toward rent in Pinellas County, even with a family of 4, make less than $47,000 a year. So it just makes sense then that a vast majority of the penny money should go to families making $47,000 or less a year, since there are 86% of those in need. And when spending the Penny for Pinellas funds in the next cycle, we need to make sure that a majority of it is used for families $47,000 a year or less. And these are, like Reverend Kathy said, these are our policemen, these are our first responders, these are our nurses, these are the people that serve us when we go to the beach and in the restaurants. So, we have asked you all that we have a resolution state that the housing development from this pot of money be spent in 2 ways. Either all units in a building go to families making less than 80% of area median income, or mixed income. 60% of the units are market rate, and the other 40% of the units go to families making 60% of area median income or less. And in our conversations with you, you all mentioned to us that maybe we need an option for flexibility in the income guidelines. So that is why there is also a mention in the resolution that if data shows that other income levels have the greatest need, then they should also, not instead of, but also, benefit from this source of funding. So we've worked together, and we thank you. We thank for all the work you've done. We thank you for listening to us, and we thank you for the work you're doing. And you know what? The work we're going to do together in the future. And we're going to help a lot of people have a home to come home to. Thank you.
Thanks, Donna.
Judy Sharmatz.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Why is spending 10% a year important?
In the past, we've worked with the County Commission to create the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which was funded with $19 million, and that created around 1,500 units to date. We are very appreciative of this effort. We were told that the County Commission had the idea for this trust fund for years, but that it never would have been brought to fruition without the community support which FAST has generated. The original understanding was that the county was going to allocate money to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund each year. However, after the first 2 years, the county stopped contributing to the fund. County commissioners said that instead of contributing to the trust fund, they planned to allocate $30 million from the 2010-2020 Penny for Pinellas money for affordable housing. We agreed to this and were then very disappointed when none of housing money was spent for the first 5 years. We know that the economy was not great during this time, but we still felt it was important to ensure there were local funds going towards housing. So finally, the county allocated $15 million to affordable housing. We do not want to see this happen again. That is why we have asked for the county and staff to have a goal to spend at least 10% of the penny housing funding each year for the 10-year period. We want to see this money begin to be spent next year, especially with the limited amount of land that is currently available. We understand that more than 10% may be spent in a year, and we would prefer for more than 10% to be spent than nothing at all. We thank you for all of your support of this resolution.
Thank you. Catherine Rosson. Hello. And thereafter, the final speaker is Mark Clutho.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Last year, 5 of the 7 county commissioners publicly committed at our Nehemiah action to put the following points into writing. It is the county's goal to allocate at least 4.15% of the 8.3% of net proceeds for affordable housing. It is the goal of the county commission to spend 10% of the Penny for Pinellas affordable housing money every year. And third, Penny for Pinellas affordable housing money should be spent on one of the following options. A, 60% of the units in a building are market rate, and the other 40% of the units go to the families making 60% AMI or less. Or B, all units in a building go to families making less than 80% of area median income. C, properties for other income levels may be included if data shows those income levels have the greatest need for affordable housing. We were hopeful that the County Commission would put these commitments in writing through an ordinance, but we later realized that the interlocal agreement was the governing document and that what we were asking for were recommendations from the Commission. So we asked that you also include these 3 main points in the county's comprehensive plan to ensure that each year they provide a direct guide to county staff. We are happy with the language of the resolution and hope that you all will support this resolution when it comes up for a vote. But as mentioned before, we want to additionally see these commitments in the comprehensive plan, as we feel that a stronger way to direct staff that will oversee this allocation of affordable housing funds. We just want to make sure that we have asked you all everything that we possibly can to ensure that this $82.5 million is spent in a way that people who voted to pass the penny can be happy with. In the past, we've seen much of the money be spent on bike paths and palm trees. And though these are nice projects, we're not objecting to that, we want to see a serious commitment to working families who cannot afford housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Clutho?
Mark Clutho, Largo. Winston Churchill said, In September of 1960, we shape our buildings, thereafter they shape us. And now we have these headlines. Hot streak holds, 2018, fourth warmest. And then you have this graph, rising global temperatures. This is going back to 1880 up to the current year of 2018. And, you know, you are taking the taxpayers' money and squandering it. You're going to make supposed or dictate what is affordable housing. The downstairs bathroom, get ready for this. Exponentially more wattage of lighting in the bathroom than what is necessary. You wouldn't know what is affordable if it slapped you in the face. That goes for FAST and Habitat for Stupidity. That's why the planet is burning. When you're belching the carbon into the atmosphere, after that rent bill for the poor people, their next biggest bill is the utility bill. That's not affordable. But when you can't get lighting in the bathroom right, when you don't know that this is a lectern and not a podium, believe me, you aren't going to do what's right with the taxpayers' money. I mean, 63 degrees when I came up here, and the air conditioning is cranking like mad in this building because you have stupid lighting that's heating the building. This is malfeasance, stupidity, and the planet's burning. They can believe in their God, but the planet's dying.
Okay, that are all the speakers that have signed up. So at this point, I'd ask for a motion, please.
Move the resolution.
Second. Motion by Commissioner Welch, second by Commissioner Gerard. Please open up the voting booth. And thank you, everyone, for being here today. Passes unanimously. Okay, moving on to agenda item 23 in Human Services.
Agenda item 23 is a sub-recipient funding agreement with Pinellas County School Board for the Pinellas School Violence Prevention Program. This is federal funding for installing technology related to automated lockdown responses and during an emergency in our schools. The school board is providing the matching funds for this program.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Long, second by Commissioner Gerard. And open up the voting card, please. That also is a unanimous approval. Moving on to agenda item 24.
Agenda item 24 is the City of Clearwater's 15-year review of their Downtown Community Redevelopment Trust Fund. As it is recommended to stay at the present rate. However, in setting up the agreement, there was a 15-year review period, and we do have staff available to answer any questions.
Commissioner Welch, should we get a short presentation?
Yeah, that'd be good.
Okay. Renee can start it off, and she'll turn it over to the city.
Again, this is City of Clearwater's annual 15-year review of their existing CRA trust fund. If you recall, in May and October of last year, they went through a series of updates, completely updated their CRA redevelopment plan, and did project out for future projects for spending for both county and city and county TIF revenues, as well as their downtown development board revenues, and made major updates to the plan that do conform with our CRA policy guidelines. So we are in favor of recommending that this as is, and the city of Clearwater is here to do a presentation, and I believe it's our assistant city manager.
Right there.
There he is. I'm sorry, I don't remember his full name. I'll let him introduce himself.
And Micah.
Thank you. Micah Maxwell, Assistant City Manager, City of Clearwater. Thank you for having us here today. I'm the interim city CRA director here at the City of Clearwater. Our normal CRA director wanted to be here. She's off on maternity leave.
Congratulations.
Yes, this is the only reason that I had to come was because she had the baby. But we're very excited about her having the baby. But she has been very involved in preparing this report. She did want me to express to you all that the planning staff has been very helpful throughout this whole process. They've guided her through and her staff through as they've tried to put together some good information, good data for you. Just wanted to touch on a couple quick points. As you may know, this time period began in 2004. We've gone back, we've reviewed, Amanda has reviewed, and her staff has reviewed the CRA activities and expenditures over the last couple of years. We agree that we have attempted to, and we believe we have achieved spending those dollars consistent with how the ordinance and the redevelopment plan called for those to be expended. We've also looked at the redevelopment projects, the projects within that redevelopment plan. It appears that we have accomplished the majority of those. We have some more that aren't quite there, but we're going to push them over the edge in the next 5 years in the new redevelopment plan. Also, we've seen increases in property values, also increases in the jobs and housing side, and then we've also seen some. Okay. And we've decreased the crime and blight within the last 15 years. Our request, as was discussed earlier, is for us to simply continue on with the program that we've had for the last 15 years, with no significant change to the funding. We think it's been working great. It's a great partnership between the county and the city, and we'd like to continue on with that. It's been very helpful to us. That said, do want to spend just a quick moment talking about, since we have you here today, some of the more micro stuff outside of the redevelopment plan, the 5-year plan. That is our 18-month CRA strategy. It's now down to about 12 months because it's been going for about 6. But this will bring us over to about next March. There's a couple big pieces to it. One is to create and share authentic, positive stories about downtown Clearwater. One element that we've had is trying to change the perspective of how people see downtown Clearwater. The second piece, to begin construction on Imagine Clearwater. We had a great Imagine meeting yesterday on the planning side. We expect to start construction a little later this year, so that's very exciting for us as well. To permit 600 housing units in downtown, it's a big hole that we've had for a long time, and we really need to bring in some bodies to downtown to really boost the economy and the activity downtown. And also to attract $100 million in private investment to really bring in that private side. We've been spending the public dollars, and that's great, but even better would be to match that with some private investment, and we think we've got some good leads on that as well. Just to quickly share a piece on our creating and sharing positive stories. The most recent iteration of that has been our Dreams of Dali exhibit. If you haven't been, I suggest you go. We've got it till June 30th. It's free. It is at our Second Century Studios right down on the corner of Osceola and Cleveland. and it's a virtual reality art project. So very neat partnership with the Dali Museum down in St. Pete. So I encourage everyone, if you haven't seen it, please go. I believe Commissioner Seal went on our opening night. So we thank you for that. With that, really just wanted to come and see if you had any questions for us, if we can do anything for you, and I'll send it back to you all.
Commissioner Welch?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a couple of questions and a comment. You gave us some great background documentation. There's one that has the capital expenditures, Table 5.
Okay.
Is that 14 million the total county TIF contribution, or just a portion of it?
I don't believe that was the total amount.
So what's been the total county
Total county
contributions to date?
And do you have that number, please?
Since inception. I just didn't know if this spreadsheet captured that, because it goes back to 2000. The second question I would have, since you're going in the archives,
The 14 million was the total amount, yes.
It's both the county and the city?
County and city.
Okay, well, at the bottom of that, there's one row that says county TIF eligible expenditures. And then the row beneath that says county TIF eligible land purchases, and those are added together. That's the 14 million.
Table 5, he says.
Table 5 is an attachment.
I just didn't know if I was reading that correctly or not.
Make sure here.
Okay.
Yeah, Table 5.
Yeah, I know, I'm trying to get there.
You see the wording?
Yeah, it's very, sorry, it's very small
It is
print
very
here.
But it says total county TIF eligible. I just didn't know if that was actual county TIF expenditures or not.
Yeah. Yes, that one. I know, but how do you?
I don't know off the top of my head. I'd have to confirm that.
Okay, if y'all could
Yeah.
just loop back, I'd like
Yeah,
to have that
absolutely,
number.
yeah.
On that same page, there's $500,000 for developer incentives, and that was FY08. I don't see any after that point. Just wanted to get some info on what that was. Was it a single deal or a couple deals, or is that multiple incentives? See the 505,000
505,000.
in FY08? It says Clearwater Center, I guess.
Oh, that's a little
1100
bigger, yeah, thank you.
Notes on it for you.
Thank you. FY08.
And it says Clearwater Center, 1100 Cleveland Street, so wondering if that was a single project or not.
Oh, that was, yes, 1100, that was the, yeah, that was the Strand building.
Strand?
It is now being reconstructed. It stopped at about, that stopped a couple of years ago, was abandoned for a few years. They've come back, and now the new owner is working to reconstruct that. They have not asked for additional CRA dollars.
So that $500,000 was for that single project?
Yes.
And do y'all have a policy on incentives? And that was a decade ago, so do you still use incentives as part of the CRA program?
We do. We don't have, we've been taking them case by case up until about a year ago. Ms. Thompson has introduced some incentive programs that are a little more defined now.
Okay. Madam Chair, I support this review and extension. I do have a comment after we discuss that, still based on the whole CRA issue.
Okay, the only comment I would like to ask or make is, did you go over all of this Table 5 with our staff? Did our staff review that?
Yes. Yep.
So it fit within our parameters of what we allowed to be spent? Okay. I think that's sort of where Commissioner Welch was also going.
Anyone else? Questions, comments? Yeah, Commissioner Akins?
And this might go to staff. Just a quick maybe summary on how we determine whether that 95% number is a good number to continue using. I mean, we've introduced new criteria for smaller percentages, and maybe you could just share a little bit of that information, just so that I'm clear what our options are when we look at a.
Sure, and okay, I'm not sure this is working. I do want to make a distinction between our policy guidelines for new, expanded, or extended CRAs versus what's required in the ordinance for their TIF review. There really, there is a distinction there, and that's what we have to use in this instance. So we didn't do a strict application of those BCC policy guidelines, to be honest with you, because that's not what is in our ordinance in our review criteria that was put in place 15 years ago. So when we consulted with the county attorney's office, we were advised to stay in the ordinance review criteria and not necessarily impose those BCC policy guidelines on that area. So we did not expressly do that.
We're still within the existing.
Yes, sir. The first, exactly. So we can go back and apply those if you would like, but we did not do that in this instance.
Well, I mean, I think as we continue to look at these CRAs that come up, I think that's something that when we first did something, it probably did warrant the 95%. I'm not saying in this case, because I really don't know. But as we move forward and we continue to extend those smaller numbers, or those 50% or 75, whatever those different levels are, might make more sense.
Yes,
And
sir.
that was the first question. The second question that might be back to the city of Clearwater is, how much of the property in downtown, what percentage of the property in downtown is tax producing versus non-tax producing?
Yeah, I definitely have to defer to the city
Okay.
on that, so.
Yeah, so I want to give some thought to that, to you.
Yes, sir,
Thank you.
absolutely. I do have some additional thoughts, okay.
Yeah.
I don't have any data on the non-producing, non-tax producing versus tax producing. I will say that there is quite a bit of property, the majority of, is tax producing.
Who are the three largest landowners in downtown?
I believe it's the city of Clearwater, Church of Scientology. I don't know who, maybe the county is the third, I don't remember.
Okay. And does the Church of Scientology, do they have properties that they do
Oh,
pay
absolutely.
taxes on? Okay.
Sure,
What
yes.
percentage of theirs do you know?
I do not know off the top of my head.
Well, those, I mean, again, it's nice to know what that effect of all the groups are. And that we know that the county and the city have their roles in.
Sure.
In non-tax, but it'd just be good to know what that percentage is
We'll
as
see
well.
if we can get you that information for sure.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve. Second.
I'd second that, and then I have a comment
Okay.
after we vote, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Long is the mover, and the seconder is Commissioner Welch. So we'll vote, and then you want your comment after we vote?
Yes, ma'am.
Or before?
I can do it after.
Okay, all right, we'll go ahead and do the voting cards. It's a unanimous approval. Commissioner Welch.
Just on the overhead for me. Thank you, Madam Chair. This certainly has been a great partnership with the city. I just wanted to put this on the table, and we've discussed it before, but I want to see if we can get concurrence on this issue. You know, we've talked about the impact of poverty and the focus, and that's why we created both the South St. Pete CRA as well as the Lellman CRA. And we stated that we wanted to explore looking at all 5 areas of the county to, again, keep poverty reduction on the front burner. In previous discussions, of course, you need a city champion for the CRAs that overlap cities. I had spoken with Councilmember Doreen Cardell about the possibility of partnering with the county on a poverty reduction CRA in the Clearwater area, and she was going to bring that forward. Of course, she's left the council. Talked with some community folks who were talking about, you know, what we did in South St. Pete, what we're doing in Lellman. Zeb Atkinson from the Clearwater NAACP is here. As you know, the Tampa Bay Black Investment Corporation opened an office in Clearwater recently. They're working here. And we just funded the STARS program out of our budget, which impacts ex-offender services to get folks back to work and into job training. So it seems like a real opportunity as we've approved the downtown CRA to remember the poverty reduction goal that we had. Spoke with Mayor Creticos yesterday. He's supportive of the concept. So I just wanted to see if we had agreement that we are still supportive if a city has a plan to use CRA funds, create something like we've done in Lellman and St. Pete to address poverty. And this red outline is the North Greenwood poverty area that we identified in that report in 2012. The other two, one is in Tarpon, and I think the other one is in High Point that we haven't addressed. So I just wanted to see if y'all still support that. I think it's very important as we rebuild downtown cores, we don't forget about, those areas of poverty and what a CR can do to help address that. And
So the outline in red is the poverty zone,
that is
but it encompasses Dunedin and,
Dunedin, Clearwater, and it's
Largo.
just north
Largo.
of Largo.
okay.
So, of course, it doesn't have to be that entire area.
Uh-huh.
But if the city can come up with a plan, and Mayor Creticos has some ideas about areas within that, he called it the North Fort Harrison area, where he could put together, start talking about job training, ex-offender services, housing, those areas that the CRA can address and be focused on poverty. So I'd like to know if we can support that, if the city was to start working on that and bring something back to us.
Madam Chair. And I've been talking to the city of Largo for years about Clearwater Largo Road redevelopment district and looking for a TIF there that they never asked for in the beginning. It's been in place for 15 years. And it hasn't gone very far because there's no money there. But yeah, that's part of your poverty area is Clearwater Largo Road.
Well, I would almost ask the three cities to get together and see what they could maybe outline,
Well,
since it
can I-
does encompass the three cities.
I know that
It
Largo
would be kind of
has-
a unique approach.
I know that Largo has talked to our staff over and over for years about it and has been put off.
Okay.
By our staff or? By our staff. And I'm not sure what that's about, but.
Why don't, do you mind if you all support it, why don't I send out a letter on behalf of the county commission to the three cities and ask them to get together and see what they could come back and propose? Because I do support it.
I appreciate
I mean,
that.
because I remember going on the record saying, okay, if we start one, then we need to do them
Exactly.
all and support them.
Madam Chair, before you send that letter, may I please suggest, with great respect, that we do find out what the issue is with Largo before we send a letter inviting them to come back to us again? If they've been trying to come to us already, I think we need to find out what the issue is, don't you?
Yeah, definitely.
And then number
And
two.
it may be far along already. I don't know, but I know that I've been talking to the Largo staff.
You
for a
said
long
your
time.
staff was the one who didn't really respond in Largo?
No, it was our
Oh, I think
staff.
it's our staff that's
Our
kind of
staff
said,
here
well,
in the
why don't
county.
you wait till, I don't know.
Okay.
So,
I'm not
That's
sure
what
the
I'm
history
hearing.
of that particular CRA and not having a TIF district. I will freely say that we are working with them, have been working with Largo on the existing West Bay Drive.
West Bay Drive, right.
Exactly. So I'm not, I'll reach out
never
to
asked
Carol
for
and
a TIF.
ask. and
And are you
see what-
specifically talking about Clearwater Largo Road, or are you talking about the poverty? Because there's a
Well, I'm
difference
talking
there.
about the piece that's, because they already have a zone on West Bay Drive. But the part that's north of West Bay Drive on Clearwater Largo Road, and I don't know how
I'm
far
not
out.
sure about the history of why that was never funded. We can dig
Well,
back
because
in
I
the
don't think they
files
ever
and-
asked for it, frankly, but
Well, I'm concerned by if for some
But
reason there was
now
some
they're
tacit
supposed to have
funding going
been
on with
trying to get
perhaps
it.
prior staff that was discouraging that. We'll definitely can explore that and find
there
out
was
what.
not a great relationship
what
for a
perhaps
while.
what perhaps may have happened there. I think something else that's warranted in this is to maybe go ahead and do an update of, look at those areas that were identified. That last map is from 2012, 2013, so there's probably more, more
Probably got
recent
more
data
somewhere.
that we can look at those poverty areas and see how they shake out now and at least for just, modernize the discussion points a little bit.
Absolutely. I'd be interested if it shrank or if it grew.
We can certainly
Yeah,
take a look at
for
that. And I
sure.
think the other piece of information that the county health assessment that Pinellas County Health Department puts out There's also an extremely valuable piece of information to tie into this that looks really at all these indicators down at the census block or census group level, census tract level. So that is very readily available and is a very, very strong indicator of these same conditions.
Let me clarify my letter. My letter was not meant to deal with Clearwater Largo Road. It was to deal with the poverty zone and asking the cities, along with our staff, to have a discussion about what that might look like. There's two different issues at play here. So, Commissioner Eggers and Commissioner Long.
Yeah, so anything that discusses the blighted concept behind the CRAs to begin with and our poverty zones just makes a lot of sense. There are a lot of that area that I would argue probably don't need a CRA or additional TIF dollars. And if you expanded it, I don't want more dollars going into the already well-established areas. So if you're going to separate them out so that we get, there's a balance. You have to be careful because you want to get some funding to that area, right? But we don't want to then in turn provide more funds to an area that's already doing well. So I would just be very careful with that. I think it's almost like with a surgeon's knife, cutting the areas out that really make sense. And there are areas in that red zone that you're talking about that are clearly poverty, and they're clearly poverty zones and clearly CRA blighted, kind of that original concept behind it all. So, and then being able to bring forward that 50, 75, 95%, whatever makes the most sense in these areas, that I think I would love to have that conversation between the three cities. I think it makes, and the county.
And Madam Chair, can I add one other thing just to clarify? I asked Barry to provide this map a couple of days ago, so I hadn't seen it. And my only conversations have been with Clearwater, because we identified it as Greenwood. And so I've talked with Bill Horn over the years and Doreen and Mayor Creticus. I didn't realize it extended past Dunedin until I got this, and all the way down to Largo. So I didn't realize it was that large. So when you talk to Dunedin and Largo, I haven't had any conversations with them.
Well, that's why I was thinking
FYI.
maybe that's why we would send out a letter encouraging everyone to meet and to have those discussions. And so on. It was Commissioner Long was next, and then Commissioner Justice.
So thank you, Madam Chair. I'm grateful that Renee talked about updating the map that we got in 2012, because I clearly remember that conversation. And while she's doing that, think it might be worthy of looking at that Largo piece that goes down into that Ridgecrest area, just because, is it Ridgecrest? Yeah, it's Ridgecrest they call it, right?
Right.
Danville.
Well, Dansville,
Dansville and
Greater
Ridgecrest.
That whole area there, because given the work that Habitat for Humanity has been doing there and the properties that we own, we could really probably create almost another opportunity to do a duplication of what we did in Lealman right there, maybe, potentially.
Well, I guess then while you're at it, go east and cover High Point.
Yeah, the whole thing.
Because it's kind of, well, no, I mean, it is kind of that mid-county to North County area, and it might be the best approach to look at it broadly. And then more.
Because if we're gonna have the conversation, let's have the real intellectual conversation about the whole thing and develop a plan. To your point, Commissioner Welch, I support that 100%.
Thank you.
Great minds think alike.
Absolutely.
Mr. Justice.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A few years ago, we had gotten a report, and I couldn't find it online today. Maybe Mr. Berger or someone in budget can help us. We got a chart that showed all of the CRA, the TIF districts, and in my head, it was $105 million of county money that had been expended on these TIFs over the years, but I don't remember the timeline of what that was. If we could get an updated of what we're spending in our current TIFs, our county contributions to the different TIFs, and then we could have that real conversation of whether it is a CRA TIF that needs to be created or whether it's simply some program funding and partnerships with some of the cities as opposed to a 30-year infrastructure. Because I think so many of our community and our municipal partners forget about the county contributions to the TIFs when they seek support for other items.
I would concur with you.
Good point. Very good point.
Okay, excellent conversation. I think we have a direction to go in, and appreciate everyone's input and ideas. We voted on that. We did vote on that. Okay, agenda item 25.
Agenda item 25 is an amendment number 1 to an interlocal agreement with the city of St. Pete Beach for Passaway Grow Way from First Avenue to 19th Street. This is Phase 2 utility relocations, and there were some changes during the project.
Move approval.
Second. A motion by Commissioner Eggers, second by Commissioner Gerard.
I love these little things like that.
Madam Chair, may I ask a question about this particular?
About this particular item?
Yes.
Sure, go ahead.
I'm assuming that we have a document of such that gives us, gives us a summary of the work that has gone on down in St. Pete Beach on the sewer system and the utilities projects down there. Do we, Megan?
Where's Megan at?
Hi, good afternoon. Megan Ross, Utilities Director. Yes, so we did get an update from Mike Clark, the Public Services Director at St. Pete Beach, and I had forwarded on just this morning to your office. They have done a number of improvements to their lift stations, and they are undergoing a large force main improvement. And so all of these improvements are scheduled to be completed at the end of 2020. And at that time. So they had a study done about 5 years ago by an engineering consultant that showed that their system was at capacity. So all of these improvements that are underway will get their system up to capacity and back in working condition.
So does that may I ask her a couple? Does that summary talk about the fact that they were at capacity and now that they're doing all of this work? Is there any information in there or in what you just said that would lead someone to believe that now they have additional capacity, or no?
So until they are completed, there's a large force main project along Gulf Boulevard that needs to be completed. And once that piece of the overall master plan is completed, which is scheduled to be completed at the end of 2020, then their system has met all of those, from what I understand, all of those items outlined in that engineering evaluation at that time.
So, and I think I saw, I think I saw that Brian is sitting there, and I don't know what your plan is, Brian, for the next time you're in Tallahassee, but I would be very grateful if that summary, along with what Megan just said, you could share with Senator Brandis, who is incredibly interested in the process of what's going on down there on St. Pete Beach, and he doesn't seem to, I don't think anyone has shared with him the amount of work that the county has done with the city on behalf of getting that system where it needs to be. I'd be really grateful. Can you do that? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Megan.
Can I ask a clarification question with Megan, Madam Chair?
Sure.
Megan, if you come back. So I'm confused. You said that their project is scheduled to be done by 2020, but they've got the Blind Pass Road being done right now. And they've done the phases in Pass-a-Grille, but the one from Mid-Long Key around 55th down to the Don Cesar hasn't been started. So when you said it would all be complete by 2020, they haven't even started that one because they're still seeking funding to even pay for that. So when you say that they would be up to capacity, it's my understanding they can't do any more development until they finish that part from like 50th to the Don Cesar. So is that part of it? I'm confused when you said they would be finished by 2020 if that piece hasn't even been started yet and they're seeking funding to be able to do that because it's my understanding they still can't add more capacity yet.
Yes, so the information that was relayed to us from their Public Services Director was that all of these improvements were slated to be completed by the end of 2020. And at that time, they would then consider lifting this moratorium on additional capacity. If there's other questions about funding or things like that, that might be better directed to the city of St. Pete Beach. But this is the information that's being relayed to us.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, to that point, I think it would be really important, County Administrator Barry, if you could have a conversation with the folks at St. Pete Beach so we're on the same page, because we've been moving forward with this. Isn't the task force still meeting on a monthly basis?
Absolutely, yes.
So everybody should be on the same page about where we are with the improvements, because I know for a fact that the legislature's really looking at the progress and how it's going and what yet still needs to be done. And I think I'm correct when I say, please tell me if I'm wrong, that system feeds into and/or is dependent on what happens in the city of St. Pete, correct?
Yes, all of their wastewater is conveyed to the city of St. Pete for treatment.
So we really have to keep our fingers on the pulse of where that all is and who's doing what to who.
And we are scheduling a steering committee update on the task force and for May. So we'll be coordinating all of that. So
And you'll bring it to us as well?
Absolutely, we can also do that. And so if that is an important piece that would like to be highlighted, we can absolutely get more information on some of the funding arrangements and.
Well, that's just me. I can't speak for everybody, but what do you all think? Don't you think we need to keep our?
I guess because I've heard from businesses down there, I just, what's their projected timeline? I mean, there was talk that it was going to be public-private funding. I think that's gone away. I know they're seeking legislative money to help fund it, but are they still on schedule to have that end completed? Because that really was still a big piece for them to with their consent decree and everything else. So it's the timeline. Are they still on that end of 2020 timeline? Or because they got another lawsuit that prohibited that public-private partnership, did that extend the timeline in which it would be completed was really all I'm looking at.
So from what I understand, that they are still on track. This is recent information from the last couple days.
Well,
So
if they're
that
on track,
just-
that's great news.
But I can certainly follow up and determine if there's been any
Okay.
other
And I did
considerations.
speak with the mayor, just FYI, and he's confident they will have the revenue they need
Yeah.
to get that end started and going.
Me too.
So if they're on track to be done in 2020, that's great news.
Yeah, this is very recent, a
Thank you.
recent update.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Terrific. Thank you. Great job.
Thank you. Voting card?
Okay.
Okay, it passes unanimously. And moving on to agenda item 26.
Item 26 is the Seventh Amendment to the agreement with Vertex Data Utility Services. This is our customer service information system for utilities, and they're requesting to extend it for an additional year within their agreement, within their current agreement.
Move
Any
approval.
questions? Motion by Commissioner Welch.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Gerard. Voting card, please. Okay, unanimously approved. Thank you very much. Moving on, County Administrator, agenda item 27, miscellaneous.
Under miscellaneous, I just wanted to highlight something we did as a change this year. So for our in-service day, we kind of changed it up. First, we've done things a certain way for a long time, and so we asked our employees, how would they like to handle the in-service day? What we heard was that it was real important for them to do things that are unique to their department. But yet they'd like to get information, centralized information. So we changed it up based upon that feedback, and this year I kicked off the day with a live online video conversation with all the employees. They could stay in their workplace, they didn't have to come to a central place, and then we also had kind of a live audience, and we invited employees to come in for a live audience. Had a little technology hiccup because I wanted it to be where they could email questions real time, but we had data limitations on being able to do that. So we we got some pictures that kind of highlight it. But what we really wanted to do was have an ongoing conversation, ask questions, kind of give some of the highlights, some of our goals and our objectives, to where everybody understands kind of the commission's direction in terms of their strategic priorities, some of the highlights that I have of things that I'm going to be focusing on the next year or two, and then to have a conversation with the employees, answer their questions, and so I think that was aside from a few hiccups, it went pretty well, but we'll make improvements, in the future. The rest of the day was spent with departments where they held team building activities. They conducted a lot of training. They participated in our emergency management preparedness exercises. And so it was things that were unique to that department, and training, safety, other types of things that are very valuable in what they do. This year, Commissioner Seal and I, we had an opportunity to visit a number of places. And we visited Public Works, Stormwater, Mosquito Control, Utilities, Solid Waste. So, there's a scary picture.
He actually did pretty good.
Wrist was shaking out there,
You don't look like you're in your element.
Believe it or not, I have actually been on some equipment a long time ago. But anyway, so we actually got to go and see what the departments were doing, and got to see firsthand the training and types of work that they do, and also the types of things that go into the preparedness for that, the cross-training that they were doing on pieces of equipment, to where they can better support each other within the divisions, and to have a bite or two. That was out at
That's
the
the chili
we just
cook-off.
recognized. Okay, so this gives you a little bit of an idea of the way we spent that time, but it was productive time. It's not just a party or this. It's actually training and doing things to where employees are more effective, in their workplace. And so overall, I think it was a good success. We did have a great time. I think Commissioner Seal would attest to that. And, it also kind of reaffirmed, the hard-working and dedicated staff that we have that are out, just trying to make a difference, trying to do better and learn within their particular areas to deliver all the services that you see up here when they bring items to you every day. That's my report.
Thank you, and I want you to, the one picture that showed the various things, that's their stormwater graveyard. So that's what they find when they are scoping down and looking, and there was even like a little ride-on toy in front of Barry, and they said oftentimes what happens is garbage cans. So garbage cans blow over, the garbage lid gets down, and it's a perfect obstruction for stormwater. Just, the lid gets caught, and there we go.
Wow.
So kind of a message out to our citizens. I don't know how you exactly avoid it, except for try not to put it near a stormwater drain.
The
So,
Steelers had a bad-
anyway, and our employees were
Had a bad
great.
year.
We had some, Barry had some tough questions at a few places, and he handled it extremely well. And we, again, both of us enjoyed being out there and talking with everybody and telling them thanks on your behalf. Okay, County Attorney miscellaneous.
I have nothing.
All right, moving on to agenda item 29, which is,
Agenda item 29 is appointments to the Emergency Medical Services Medical Control Board, and they're listed on your resolution.
Move approval, Madam Chair.
Second.
yes,
What?
is that a motion?
I said move approval, Madam Chair.
Okay.
I seconded.
And I think I heard a second from Commissioner Welch.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, voting ballot, please. Okay, unanimous approval. Moving on to agenda item 30.
Agenda item 30 is appointments, reappointments to the Emergency Medical Services Advisory Council.
Move approval.
Second. Disarray.
Motion by Commissioner Egger, second by Commissioner Gerard.
Gerard.
Okay.
I gotta be fast between you two.
Voting ballot, please. Okay, unanimous approval. Moving on to county administrator reports, and we have a few.
So the first item, we have 3 items for you today under the county administrator reports. The first is on the FY 2023 proposed rate increases for the water, sewer, and reclaimed water system. And I'd invite Megan to come up and she can introduce the topic and also the folks she has with her to go over this.
Yes, good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. Megan Ross, Utilities Director, Pinellas County. The Utilities Department conducts a rate study every few years to determine if revenues are sufficient to cover operating and capital cost needs for water, wastewater, and reclaimed water infrastructure and services. Recently, the department completed the most recent multi-year rate study looking at rates for fiscal years 20 through 23. So today, we're here to present to you the results of this study. Stantec was the consultant selected to do the evaluation, and they were invited here to present to you the results. So I'd like to at this time invite Andrew Barnum up, VP of Stantec Consulting, to present the results. And I'd also like to, Jeff Dykstra will be presenting the results. Come on up. And to conclude the presentation, he's also going to be reviewing some of the next steps that we'll take to implement the proposed rates.
Good afternoon.
The microphone's working?
I think so.
I think.
Who knows?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Jeff Dykstra with Stantec. As Megan introduced us, we performed the 2019 rate study. We have performed the last several rate studies for the county's utility, water and sewer utility. In the latest 2 studies, 2011, 2015, the board adopted 2 4-year rate plans, and the graph on the left indicates the cumulative rate adjustments that the board approved at that time in each of those 4-year periods. Just as a matter of comparison, we've called out the water, sewer, and reclaimed cumulative rate increases. And we've compared that to the national average change in water and sewer service, or cost of water and sewer service for the typical household as measured by the US CPI on that bar on the right. And just want to point out that over the past 8 years, the water and sewer increases have been only about 2/3 of that overall index CPI, whereas reclaimed water has been a little bit higher as we're trying to improve the overall cost recovery of that system. The 2019 study really had a focus on a multi-year sustainability plan. We look at a 10-year forecast of the overall financial picture of the utility. We're asking you to consider a 4-year rate period, but we do go the extra 6 years there just to look a little bit long-term on what the needs may be. The rate study focused on resiliency of the utility and financial sustainability. The study really consisted of 3 components. Number 1, we're asking the question, what are the overall costs? How much money and revenue do we need? Secondly, what causes how should those costs be collected from the customer? So we looked at a wholesale, retail cost of service allocation analysis. And then the third component is how do we recover the revenues? And so that's a rate design analysis where we look at the rate structure and if there's any changes that we need to make based on best industry practices. Go through each system individually here, starting with water. Key issues from the water system, first related to your costs or your cash outflows, are just an overall awareness and consideration of Tampa Bay water expense. That represents over half of your operating budget. And so any changes to that going forward will have an impact on your overall budget and also the rates that you need to charge to meet those requirements. So we factored in projections on that expense over the 10-year forecast period. Also wanted to focus on, point out the 5-year CIP for the water system is about $92 million over that period. And a third of that is in investments in electronic metering and customer information systems. So investments on the customer-facing part of your system. From a revenue side, when we evaluated that, really 2 items and they're related came to light that we're focused on. One is currently on the water system, the base charge is $6.80 per month. And so a customer pays this regardless of any water usage. but also regardless of which meter size they have. So an opportunity here, and we'll talk about this with the rate structure modifications, but right now we see a potential inequity in the fact that a customer with a 3/4 inch meter pays the same rate as a customer with an 8-inch meter. And so a customer with an 8-inch meter can handle a lot more water, a lot more capacity, and so they should be reflected in their monthly charges. Related to that is also your level of revenue recovery from fixed charges. Right now, you're recovering about 13% of your revenues from that base charge on the water side. Best industry practices and some criteria or guidance provided by the rating agencies have listed a target of that at about 30%. And so with the recommendations for the water system, we'll touch on both of those issues going forward. The results related to the water system are that over the next 4 years, we're recommending 1% annual revenue increases for the water system. This 1% in revenue is recommended to be recovered for both wholesale and retail charges. On the retail side, though, based on the recommended changes on the rate structure, we're able to get the full 1% on the retail's portion of the 1% just from the modification to the base charge. And we'll talk about what that means a little bit more in a moment. The long-term financial, the 10-year financial plan for the water system calls for no debt. You don't have any debt on the water system right now. That will continue, and we're maintaining sufficient reserves of 6 months working capital over the projection period. Revenues are also closely aligned with costs. When we think back to the cost allocation analysis, so that means that retail and wholesale customers are recovering their costs adequately. Regarding to the rate design component, as I mentioned, we're recommending that the 1% on the retail will be recovered from a recommended modification on the base charge. Currently, about 92% of your customers have a 3/4 inch meter. What we're recommending is that we scale the base charge by meter size, meaning that a customer with an 8-inch meter right now has a capacity for about 80 times more water than a 3/4 inch meter. And so what we're recommending is over a four-year rate period, instead of having those rates equal 1-for-1, $6.80, by year 4, that 8-inch customer would pay 80 times the $6.80 base charge. And so that would be a 4-year phase-in, so that year 1 is 20 times more, year 2, 40, and on we go until year 4. We're at that equity measure. What this does mean is that for 92% of your water customers, their bills will remain flat for the next 4 years on the water portion. And no changes are recommended to the volumetric rate at this point for water. On the wastewater system.
Excuse me, could you go back to that last slide real quick? Everything below that top line obviously represents the 8%. I'm assuming it's all of our commercial users for the most part.
For the most part, yeah.
Yeah, and in the breakout, I see the percentages. What increase are you talking about for each one of those levels? Are we talking, it's not all 8-inch?
Correct. It'd be each meter size larger than a 3/4 inch.
Right.
Would increase basically over a 4-year period an equal amount.
Percentage increase would be the same over whatever they're paying now, is what you're saying?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate it.
I gave the example on the 8-inch. It's 80. That one happens to be 80 times, and so year 1 it would be 20 times more. Year 2 would be 40 times more, 60.
And what is, for an example, what would that typically be?
So for a 8-inch customer by 2023, it's about $544 a month. And you only have 20 of those in the system.
And right now it's what?
$6.80.
$6, okay. Yeah, that's.
And we do have some bill impacts so that you can see the percent change to a bill. We're talking about customer with an 8-inch meter typically has quite a lot of flow on a monthly or bi-monthly basis. And so we'll show the impact in terms of dollars and percentages in a few slides. Wastewater side, key issue here is the staff identified CIP. And the graph on the right provides a comparison of the 5-year CIP that we're using as the basis for this analysis compared to the last 5 years from the 2015 study. The big difference is obviously, just visually, it's $204 versus $85 million. Over this time, staff has lessons learned, a more succinct or identified CIP, more specific projects identified, more knowledgeable about the system, and some ongoing and information already gathered from studies, such as master planning, flow monitoring, and things of that nature. And so, of the $204 million in the water or the sewer CIP, about half of that is for improvements at Dunn and South Cross. We've called out some of the larger projects there for you to see. Also want to point out, as I just mentioned though, that there are master plans, flow monitoring studies, condition assessments going on right now that may identify future capital. This is the best information that we have at this point. And we'll be evaluating this as we go. Results on the sewer system, because largely driven by this increase in CIP, is that on the wastewater system, we're recommending 9.5% revenue adjustments for the next 4 years. This will be applied to both retail and wholesale customers. The costs are well aligned between those two customer groups at this point. No concerns or issues on the rate structure, so we're recommending maintaining the rate structure on the wastewater system. Combined, the reserve targets met long-term at that 6-month working capital. This plan does call for the issuance of just under $70 million worth of debt. We did look at some sensitivity analysis to see if we could reduce the recommended increase from the 9.5 if we issued more debt to spread those costs over time. What we found is that $68 million represents about a fourth, about 25% of the 4-year CIP. If we doubled the debt issuance from 68 to say about $130 million, we could lower the rate increases down from 9.5 to 7.5. One of the reasons why we're not recommending that is that because of the studies and evaluations that staff is doing on the system right now, we don't want to necessarily use up all the bonding capacity that may offer as we go. So what does this mean for your typical customer? This is a combined water and sewer bill for a customer using 5,000 gallons, a 3/4 inch meter, over the next 4 years. And so the 9.5% increase on sewer and effectively a 0% change on the water portion of the bill means that the typical bill will change by about 5.5% per year, roughly $4.
That capital that you're talking about and the reason, I guess that's a big reason for the 9.5% or a large part of it?
Yep.
Okay. Do you see that continue, because you said you did this for 10 years, do you see that same pressure on the capital side after the first 4 years?
So in our 10-year plan, we're coming today for a 4-year request of 9.5. In the 10-year plan, the 5th year was also 9.5, but then after that we drop off to 3% a year. So after this, I call it slug of capital, we're able to sort of minimize future rate increases and keep it more stable at a inflationary level.
And just quick, I mean, most of this is in the infrastructure of the plants?
Yeah, roughly half of the The first 5-year CIP is for improvements and at the Dunn and South Cross facilities.
And what about the distribution system?
Yeah, there's a number of improvements there. We also have some reclaim metering. There's continuing R&R and going on with the collection system that's included in there as well.
Megan Ross. So, yes, we do have a number of improvements in our collection system. And in addition, we are doing flow monitoring in the collection system. And so that is going to allow us to really identify additional capital needs there. So we do have capital improvements planned for the collection system right now. But what we're doing is putting some money in the outer years, because once this flow monitoring study is completed and really translates into actual projects, then that's where we're really going to get out there and do additional improvements to the system.
And what's your sense of having a good feel for that, the condition of our lines? Like the big line that we had to change up in North County that went from the plant, down, it was a huge break and a huge, well, I won't say a huge spill, but a spill, and there were some issues there. What's your take on the rest of our system? Or is that?
Well, I can tell you we've done a lot of work, especially lessons learned from that incident, to better maintain and operate our force mains, and also to do more of an assessment on the condition of those force mains. So all of that is underway. I mean, we've already done a lot of improvements, for example, on maintenance of our air release valves. That can extend the life of those force mains for a much longer period of time, but we're also doing a number of studies to assess the condition of those force mains and slate those for potential improvement.
And that study will be done, when did you say? I'm sorry, for the main force main
So
lines?
there's a number of different studies that are ongoing.
Yeah.
So they're not all packaged in one.
Okay.
So
Condition
over
of
the
our
next-
main lines, I guess is what I'm thinking, the condition of the main force main.
Yes, those are underway. So we're depending on what force main, and we may divide up those studies into different projects, but those are ongoing over the next 3 to 4 years. Yeah.
In 3 to 4 years, you're saying you'll have a high confidence of knowing, or higher confidence of knowing what vulnerabilities we have.
On the force main side. Now,
Yeah.
on the gravity side, that's where the flow monitoring comes in. So we have two issues. We've got the force mains, which are under pressure,
Right.
and those are evaluated in a different way than the gravity system, which we use the TV cameras to evaluate, and also the flow monitoring. So we're going to be looking at both of those. But yes, between the flow monitoring and the force main condition assessment, we're going to have a much better idea of where we can slate these projects and how do we time those projects out appropriately. So we are not doing them all at once, but we're also not kicking them all too far down the road.
Yeah, when I first came on 4 years ago, one of your predecessors' biggest concerns was that we didn't have a good sense, a good
Yes.
handle on those conditions, and that scared him. So I want to make sure that we're at least heading down the right path.
We are, absolutely.
To take away that concern.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just looked at the impacts to the typical residential bill. For a customer with a larger meter, again, represents about 8% of your overall customers have something more than a 3/4 inch meter. But we just provided some bill impacts here for various levels of usage, just to give you an idea of what the impact will be on their bills. You have about 5,000 1-inch meters, about 1,500 2-inch, 200 6-inch, and as I mentioned, only 20 8-inch. And so the bill impacts for these customers are roughly 6 to 7%, depending on the level of usage on a monthly basis. Next slide is covering the reclaimed water system.
Excuse me, sorry, one more question. Going back to that slide, again, you were showing that your water usage was, we're expecting 1% increases a year.
1% is the overall revenue increase for the water system.
Oh, I thought that was for not the retail users.
Retail and wholesale.
Yeah.
Just happens that the retail portion is recovered only from base charges. So the volumetric water rates will
Okay.
remain flat. This is an overall bill which has both base and volumetric.
Okay, this is, it's showing 4%, 4.7% of the customers are in that top?
Correct, and with a 1-inch meter.
What? Okay, I'm looking at something very differently, so I'll take a look and I'll ask you questions in a minute. Thank you.
On the reclaimed water side, one of the objectives of staff's objectives really was to provide some simplification and recalibration of the reclaimed water rates. You have 4 major groups of customers. You have county-funded, metered and unmetered, and what we call non-county funded, metered and unmetered. And really the difference between county-funded and non-county funded is that for county-funded, county's gone in and put in the local distribution and infrastructure, whereas non-county funded, a developer or another party did that.
So, Madam Chair? Yes. So would an example of that be for those folks, for example, that live in the Bayou Club? That was all developed by a private developer, so would that be an example of a non-county funded?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that specific neighborhood, but if the developer put in the infrastructure, then that would be a
Non-county.
non-county fund.
That's what I thought. Thank you. Just for clarification. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And so with that in mind, right now, as an example, for a metered service right now, the only difference between a county funded and a non-county funded system is $1, $23 versus $22. Right now, you have something called the availability charge that is put to only county-funded customers to recover the cost that the county incurred to put in those systems. And so the difference you would think should be the $7 versus just $1. So that's an example of what we mean when we're trying to make the rate structure a little bit more simple so that customers with the same type of service are paying the same rates. Another objective was to, specific to the availability charge, right now that's $7, and the debt associated with that $7 is retired in 2028. So we're recommending maintaining that until at that point you could consider the availability charge. The debt associated with that will be paid off, so that could drop eventually. And that debt is retired in 2028. Another objective that we had too when looking at this was to help manage the reclaimed water resource a little bit better. There's planned metering for reclaimed water that will help manage demand a little bit better. And so right now you have a lot of unmetered customers and you don't know exactly who's using what and how much. And so the rate structure that we're recommending for reclaimed water implements a base charge for metered customers that includes 15,000 gallons of reclaimed water per month. Right now, most of your customers are unmetered, but as the metering happens over the next several years, it would come onto this rate structure. You have it in place, and it would help manage those demands a little bit better. Anything above the 15,000, it would pay a volumetric rate at that point. Another issue on reclaimed water is the level of cost recovery. That's slowly improved over the years, but right now in 2019, reclaimed water rates are recovering only about 33% of the costs. So over this 4-year period, by increasing the retail and wholesale reclaim rates, we get up to 44% by 2023.
And there's nothing in there for capital increase costs for the meters. Right now, there's no cost for our residents.
We have that built into the CIP. Staff does, so that would be recovered by rates, not directly by the customer at that time that they were
Okay.
metered.
But these rate increases are accounting for that.
Correct. Next slide is a bill comparisons, or a bill impact table that shows for your four main buckets of reclaimed customers, what are the bill impacts over the 4-year period. The two black lines are your unmetered customers, county funded and non-county funded. And so by 2029, if you look in by 2023, if you look in the last column, you'll see that the only difference between the two rates is the $7 availability charge. And so you can see what that means. 95% of your customers are county funded unmetered right now, and that's that second black row, or the third overall row. And their monthly bill will change by $1.50 per month as a result of these rate increases. The next several slides are some local bill comparisons that we performed. The first one is a look back to 2015, our water and sewer rates for a typical residential home using 5,000 gallons a month. At that time, county was at $67 and was fourth highest in the survey. Since that time, the last rate study, you implemented water rate increases of 1.75% a year and sewer 1% a year. And so between then and now, this next graph shows where you are in comparison today at just over $71 a month. So you've dropped comparatively in the survey with those increases. And with the 2020 increase, this would go to 74, 73. And that would keep you literally in the same spot in the survey. And we do expect a lot of these other, in working with a lot of these other communities, that they either have approved or proposed rate adjustments that I suspect in 4 years when you come back and look at this, you'll be in a pretty similar spot from a comparative standpoint. Next two are reclaimed water bill reclaimed water bill comparisons. The first one is for unmetered service, and point out that right now the $23 versus $22 between the two services, county funded and non-county funded. Most systems have metered reclaimed water service. So the next chart is a few more entities on there, and you can see the difference right now is the $7 availability charge. Just visually speaking, if you chopped off $7 off that top bill, you would be where the bottom orange bar is, and so that's in 2028. You could potentially drop the $7 off of that fee, and you'd be in the middle of the survey, if you will. Next steps, or recommendations and next steps. We recommend that you adopt or consider adoption of the proposed rates through 2023, a 4-year rate plan. Staff does this also on an annual basis, but we recommend updating the financial plans annually just to keep track of any known changes and variables. Specifically, a big variable which you talked about today is the capital improvement program. So as we're monitoring this on an annual and even more often basis, we can keep a handle on if there's a need to come back and adjust these recommended rates. Next steps, the customers will be notified of a public hearing on May 21st of this year. Public hearing will be announced or noticed before that. And at that point, you'll have the opportunity to vote on these proposed rates for consideration to be adopted. Any discussion or questions that you may have?
Any questions?
Maybe a couple. Thank you for the presentation. I appreciated getting a little heads up before this meeting, and so when I went back to page 10 that talked about, that was your retail customers. That's the 90% of the folks that were most of our residential users, minimal if any increase at all. And what I just wanted to, if people, not that I expect a lot of businesses are sitting here listening to this conversation right now, but if they were, or if somebody was, and they heard that 80 times the amount, That just always strikes me as something to be alarmed about. But what it's showing here is that all the commercial customers, depending on whether you're a low to a high user, will experience in the first year a 6 to 10% increase in their overall utility rate. That's water and sewer.
Water and sewer combined, yes.
So, again, I think that's a significant increase in itself. But it just puts a little bit more perspective on that 80%. I think under the reclaimed, those rates are high, again. But I think this metering, at least folks that get it or are paying for it, whether they're using it or not, will get some product now, especially in the North County where they're just not, you're paying these high rates and not getting any product a lot of the time. So being able to get in there and fix their problems and then use that, you actually get water when they call on it, as long as they use it moderately, I think will be at least an explanation of the benefit. Will at least make them feel a little bit better that they're actually getting product for what they're paying for. And I mean, that's going to be, I don't know how we work the system without meters to begin with, but I think this will help a lot. Thank you.
Okay, any further questions? Well, I think you all did an excellent job, and that it seems like a balanced approach, and we're very appreciative. It's actually kind of a more creative approach than in past years, and trying to keep that balance. And so, thank you very much, and we'll look forward to the public hearing on March the
May 21.
21st. Okay. All right.
I don't remember either, so. The second item we have
the budget forecast.
is the budget forecast, and Jim Abernathy will be up to present the financial forecast for the next couple of years.
Good afternoon. I'm Jim Abernathy with the Office of Management and Budget, and I'm here to present the budget forecast for FY20 through FY25. I'll be happy to answer any questions throughout the presentation. Why do we forecast? We forecast because of Goal 5.2 of the strategic plan to be responsible stewards of the public's resources. While the budget is our roadmap for one fiscal year, we believe it is important to know what impacts the decisions made today may have on long-term fiscal sustainability of the county. Hopefully this will help our decision makers make better informed choices. The forecast is meant to show the cumulative effect of all the decisions we may make, both positive and negative, allowing for changes to be made where necessary or desired. Having this information in advance can help identify both the opportunities and challenges, allowing time to more fully study the choices being presented to us. Our forecast projects both revenues and expenditures for the current fiscal year and the next six fiscal years using a set of assumptions. Potential new programs or services or rate changes are not included in our baseline projections. This is the 10th year that the forecast has been a standalone document. We make periodic updates to the forecast as new information becomes available, and we include the updated forecast in the annual budget book. The document includes forecasts for 10 of the county's key funds. The details of the forecast are in your staff report and available on the Citizens Budget website for the public. Today, however, we will focus on the General Fund, the Tourist Development Tax Fund, the Solid Waste Fund, the Sewer Fund, the Water Fund, and the Transportation Trust Fund. Before we look at the individual fund forecast, let's look at how we developed the forecast. Driving our forecast is a set of assumptions. We use more than 30 assumptions, with some affecting specific funds, such as the change in the gas tax revenue, or while others apply to all 10 funds, such as the change in operating expenses. These assumptions are based on input from both internal and external sources, including our departments and agencies, and then various state, federal government, and local and national economists. So these are all sources that kind of agree in a broad range. Some examples of the various assumptions we use include, on the revenue side, the countywide property tax revenue is projected to increase by 5.5% in FY20. Revenue from the half-cent sales tax is projected to increase by 3.5% in FY20 and throughout the forecast period. On the expenditure side, personal services are projected to increase by 3.6% in FY20, and that is a blended rate of both the salaries and benefit increases. Operating expenses, which is based on the CPI, is projected to increase 2.3% annually during the forecast period. These assumptions are then applied to the existing budget to come up with projections for future years. The assumptions that we have are not applied to one-time items such as reimbursements for Hurricane Irma or red tide or those types of items. In addition to the economic assumptions, we also build in all of the known and set changes that will affect our funds. For example, during the presentation last week for the recommended changes to the solid waste tipping fee, a question was asked about the escalator and the revenue for the electrical capacity at the waste energy plant. In the pro forma for the solid waste fund, we include the 6.4% annual increase through FY24, and then we show a reduction based on the current agreement ending at the end of December of 2024. We also keep certain items flat based on current agreements as well. For example, the tourist development tax or the tourist development fund makes annual payments of about $587,000 to the city of Clearwater for the Philly spring training. That is an item that is set throughout the length of the agreement. This type of analysis is done for all of the funds within the forecast when possible. Pinellas County's economy continues to exhibit slow and steady growth since the end of the Great Recession in 2009. Unemployment in Pinellas was at 3.1% in December and averaged 3.2% during 2018. Florida's, and by comparison, Florida's unemployment rate was 3.3% in December, while the national rate was 4.0% in January. The housing market continues to demonstrate strength with rising year-over-year home sales and prices. The median sales price increased by 8.4% to just under $254,000, which is the 7th straight year of price increases. The taxable value in the county has increased 8.1% for FY19 to almost $79.4 billion. Since FY97, the average growth for the taxable values in the general fund has been 4.4% annually. As you can see from the chart, our taxable values are now tracking slightly above the historical trend line, and taxable values has almost regained all of the losses experienced due to the effects of the Great Recession,
Wow.
which saw taxable values decline 5 consecutive years from FY 2009 to FY 13. So the height was just over $80 billion, and we are just below $80 billion for the current fiscal year.
That's incredible. I mean, that's really powerful to see that graph right there.
Scary.
Well, it just goes to show you how bad things can get and how interesting it is that our citizens don't realize how long it takes to recover.
A decade.
A whole decade.
The drop happens much quicker than the increase.
Yeah, why is that? That doesn't seem fair.
Doesn't seem fair.
This doesn't seem right somehow.
So for the potential impacts to the forecast, there are many factors that can impact the accuracy of this forecast. Some of these we can control, such as the utility rates that we charge or the millage rate. Others are outside of our control. Either the state or federal government could impose new regulatory requirements or shift funding responsibility down to the county. The economy may grow at a slower pace than our projections, potentially reducing available resources. On the other side, the economy could grow faster than what we have projected, which would provide us with unanticipated resources. And you'll hear this often through this presentation, but since we do not assume new policy in the forecast, when specific items are scheduled to end, we reflect that in our projections. An example of that is a couple years ago, we were showing the penny for Pinellas ending with the next year, and we showed the drastic drop in revenue that would happen if that went away. So until it is adopted by the board, we do not include it.
Madam Chair, may I make a point?
Yes, and then Commissioner Akers.
Thank you. So not so much to you, Jim, but it occurs to me, I can see Brian still over there. You know, on those bills, when you're talking to our legislator on those bills that are, have a negative impact to local government, I think this chart right here would be a real visual to show them, because they don't believe it. When you talk to them one-on-one, they don't believe that how long this has taken to recover. And I think it would be very powerful if they saw that. Well, why are you, I see you.
I'm exercising self-control.
Okay, but just a point. Thank you.
If I could, Madam Chair, I totally agree with you, but they knew the data. It was an anti-local government issue. So.
Data is important.
Sometimes.
Well, it was. A
Thank
picture
you.
tells 1,000 words.
Commissioner Akers.
Yeah, on that same graph, I mean, it seemed like there was a lot of years leading up to that 07, 08 values that got so high and then dropped. Are there any whispers out there? And I think Commissioner Gerard just said scary, and I kind of agree. When you look at where we're heading now,
Absolutely.
and are there any whispers out there about things dipping in the next couple of years? Do you hear any of that out there that gives us pause?
Real estate specific, no. Only because real estate is very local. But
Mental health.
everyone's been talking about a potential for a recession nationally for the last couple of years. And home sales and home prices and things like that, I do track regularly, and that's why I thought it was important to let you know that the median prices are still increasing. So, you know, it is, I wish I had the crystal ball. But
I mean,
don't.
just as long as we got those indicators that we're looking at carefully during the year, I'm assuming all the time.
Yes.
So that we can start to anticipate some of this craziness that we saw. I mean, I know there were some things in 07, 08 that why it went down was not just a certain part of the economy, but.
Yeah, and we do, you know, every year, obviously, we're tracking the values of the property, and so we can see if things start to turn. Hopefully, we'll be able to see it. And the drastic drops that were before, you know, I don't know that anybody, well, there were many people who were projecting that.
Yeah, I just think we have to continue to be careful and expanding slowly, which is why I get all upset when we start talking about, you know, hiring a lot of people. It just makes me nervous to ever get back to that point where we have to, you know, lay off a lot of people. So I want to make sure that we're doing things just incrementally and carefully. And
Well, just as a point of reference, we've always tried to be conservative on both the expenditures and the revenues. We probably overestimate expenditure side and we underestimate revenue side because of the pain that happens if you need to make adjustments. So these figures, we're not trying to be you know, super aggressive with potential revenues because of the potential for reduction.
So you have that, you track that, right? Like, so we know the last couple of years where you overestimated or underestimated on the revenues and expenses, how we actually turned out versus that.
Yes, we do track that. I don't have
Okay,
the
that's fine.
figures.
So maybe we can get that information just to, if we can get that from you, that'd be great. Thank you.
I'm not sure which slide is it. Now we'll review a few of the funds for which we'll be discussing balancing strategies if they're needed as part of the budget development process over the next several months. The first fund that we're going to look at is the general fund. The forecast indicates that the general fund is balanced over the forecast period without millage increases. Maintaining this positive condition assumes continued use of non-recurring funds for one-time expenditures and continuing to balance the desires to improve and expand services with the limited resources available to accomplish these objectives. This graph demonstrates the balance in the general fund over the 6-year forecast period. As you can see, we were able to maintain at least 15% of revenue in reserves throughout the forecast period based on our current projections.
Excellent.
The Tourist Development Tax Fund, FY18 was the 7th consecutive year of record-breaking revenue from the tourist development tax. The county collected almost $60 million in TDT revenue, which equates to almost $1 billion in spending on hotel and motel rooms in Pinellas County. Capital funding in FY19 includes $5.2 million for beach renourishment projects and almost $36 million in capital expenditures for 7 different projects as part of the capital program, which was approved by the BCC during 2017. The CVB recently received applications requesting funding for 5 projects totaling $62 million for the next round of capital funding. Each of these projects will be evaluated based on stated criteria, and any funding would only happen after approval by the BCC. Because none of these new requests have been approved by the BCC, they are not included in our forecast. The current list of projects that's being funded by the TDT fund is, first we have the second of the 2 years of funding for the Clearwater Marine Aquarium. We have the second of 2 years of funding for the City of Clearwater for Ruth Eckerd Hall. We also have funding for the Countryside Sports Complex. We are in the second of 3 years of funding for the American Craftsman Museum in St. Petersburg. And the City of Dunedin training renovation, which will continue in FY20. For that project, the total commitment is $41.7 million. Funding for the county's commitment to the Philly Spring Training Facility in Clearwater and the Dali Museum in St. Petersburg also continues. And I just want to note that the spring training funding that we have here is our previous commitment. It is not related to the request that you reviewed recently.
What? Oh, she's not here. Are you leading the
Yes.
show? Sure. Nice to see you, Jim. Thank you for that report. Oh shoot, the question that I had just went right out of my head. I hate it when that happens. Well, it'll come, the good news is it'll come back. What?
I don't know, reserves?
Sometimes it doesn't.
No, it had to do with,
Brian.
I am so sorry, it was so important too.
I'll ask one while she's, do you remember what the original contribution for the
Oh,
Dali
I-
was and how long it was spreading?
For the Dali, it was $2.5 million over 5 years.
Okay,
I
go
remember.
ahead.
I told you it would come back if I just could go on. That comment that you just made about the spring training, the City of Clearwater and that money, that's the previous commitment?
Correct.
At what point is that previous commitment totally done?
We have, I believe it is February of 2021, or, yeah, February of 2021.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
When the BCC approved the current projects for capital funding, you also agreed to limit funding for all capital projects to 40% of current year's revenue, while allowing any unspent capital funds to be I think we're missing. while allowing any unspent capital funds to be reserved for future projects. I have a chart, which is not in the presentation, showing the balance of the Tourist Development Tax Fund for the capital projects. And it is, this would be the funding that would be available for future projects that were currently or previously received, as well as any that might come in the future.
Well, now I have another question, Madam Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
So, Mr. Abernathy, what happens to all of that money that's, we have on that chart? If, God forbid, we have a little dip in our tourism monies and we don't have the money?
Well, we are only committed to funding projects through FY '20. So we would have to adjust payments if we would have to think about that as we're agreeing to any potential future project. We do show that we maintain just under $7 million at the end of FY '20 after paying out. And after FY '20, we'll be done, we should be done with the funding for the Dunedin Blue Jays project, assuming construction stays on course. So at that point, we would have no, other than the beach, we would have no other projects really out there that would be using these funds.
And that's, you think that'll be done in 2020, you said?
That is their projections. I think as soon as spring training ends, they plan to really get into it because they want to be back there as quickly as possible.
Thank
So.
you. How come you didn't have any questions? It's your turn.
The solid waste fund, as is our practice, we do not assume revenue associated with rate increases beyond those currently approved by the BCC. A rate study was recently completed by a rate consultant, and results were presented last week during the work session, and they will be presented again to the BCC during an upcoming public hearing. The county is currently in negotiations with Duke Energy regarding the power purchase agreement. At this time, specific alternatives are not yet available. Our consultant is expected to deliver the master plan final report in the coming months. Recommendations will be discussed by solid waste, county admin, municipalities, and other partners. This graph depicts the balance in the solid waste fund over the 6-year forecast period. In FY '25, reserves as a percent of revenue increases dramatically because the total revenue falls from $132 million in FY '24 to $74 million in FY '25, while the reserves remain high at $277.4 million, which is a 4% or $4 million drop from FY '24.
I have a question. I wasn't here at last week's presentation. I was a little busy. But, so the forecasts are based on losing the capacity payments from Duke Energy? Is that?
It is based on the agreement ending as currently, as it's currently agreed to. So,
But we will be, I'm sure you all had a discussion of this last week, but, so why would we do a rate study based on something that we're pretty sure we're going to have anyway? Or is the capacity part of that going away?
That's the piece.
Because I think we probably scared the heck out of all the cities.
Well, the cities they have a representative on that.
Yeah, I know.
Committee, and
I know.
there's some communication.
I still haven't heard from them yet.
Yeah, well, there's some communication within the cities about their representative that is on that group. They presented kind of a best case scenario, worst case scenario, and these rates are to soften that impact regardless of what happens in that. So there's a lot of unknowns. They know that doing these slight rate adjustments will just get them in a better position long term.
But we're not expecting the income, well,
We're not going to be expecting the income that we're receiving now.
why?
I can bring staff in, they can talk
Well,
about
I'm
that.
just-
the
give me a
agreement will
25
expire.
word.
and
Elaborate if you want.
that would, it's up to you.
Okay, I don't need a half-hour presentation on that, I just want to know.
That's exactly what
Commissioner?
I mean. We could, you know.
We can talk
We
about
had
it.
that at a
That's all
work
right.
session. Why don't I get staff in to come and have that same presentation with you?
Sure. Well, no, that's all right. Probably don't need the whole presentation.
A revised
All right.
version.
I thought that was an easy answer, but it is not.
Kathleen had a question.
You have a question?
No, Kathleen.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to reiterate what I said that you missed at the last meeting. The legislature made it so the utility companies, when they were buying the biofuels, the cost is significantly higher than it is to produce energy with natural gas or with solar. And so what it says in statute is that the utility companies, when they renew these contracts, because before then we didn't have abundant natural gas and we had more coal-fired plants and it was more expensive. So when they renew this contract, if the power companies can produce that energy cheaper than what they were paying us, they are no longer obligated to renew those contracts to pay us at that rate. Otherwise, they'd have to increase the ratepayers' cost because they can produce it cheaper. So many of the power companies, utility companies, have gone to natural gas and they've gone to solar panels, and therefore they can produce the energy cheaper than what they are paying us to produce it at the waste-to-energy facility, and therefore they don't have to pay us any more than what they can produce it for once the contract's over. And that's where it's coming from, because otherwise the ratepayers would pay that increase, and therefore the statute's protecting the ratepayers. Does that make
Okay,
sense?
But has Duke Energy gone to natural gas?
Yes, they have.
Not gone to solar.
They're building a huge, I toured it about 2 years ago, huge natural gas facility there, and FPL is looking at 4 million solar panels within a 2 to 3 year period. The Crystal River, they've encased a lot of that in concrete, and they've replaced, what they replaced the nuclear plant with is significantly larger natural gas, and most of the utility companies across the state have shifted to natural gas.
So I have a question of Commissioner Peters, Madam
And
Chair.
it's strictly because I was the chairman of the
It's
Utilities
okay.
Committee.
I value the information,
Yeah.
Commissioner Peters, and my next question is, because like you, I was there when they did the opposite thing.
Right.
Are they going to reduce the bill to the customer as a result of not paying so much?
And Madam Commissioner, that would strictly be up to the PSC to make that determination on what their rates would be.
Okay, sorry I started that. Carry on.
Thank you.
So for the sewer fund forecast, since you just heard from the county's consultant regarding the recently completed rate study for both sewer and water, we will just go over these briefly today. The current rate plan for the sewer system included increases through the current fiscal year. The rates produced enough revenue to maintain sufficient reserves to complete needed capital projects on the sewer system and maintain the debt service coverage on the sewer's outstanding sewer revenue bonds through the current fiscal year. As is our practice, we do not assume rate increases beyond those currently approved by the BCC. As you can see from this chart, the forecast shows reserves being exhausted early in FY21. Again, this assumes that there are no rate increases from FY20 forward. The primary driver of this imbalance is the capital needs that have been identified and built into the forecast. In the water fund, the current rate plan for the water system also includes increases through the current fiscal year. And we are not assuming any increases beyond what has already been approved.
But we're going to fix that, right?
That is.
The other group. You
What?
can have your public hearing on that, yes. That's what the public hearing's for.
As you can see from the chart, reserves are dropping consistently during the forecast period as expenditures exceed revenue in each year. However, it is a planned use of reserves for projects that need to be done. The last fund that we're going to cover today is the Transportation Trust Fund. Revenue that is collected is based on the number of gallons sold, not the price per gallon. Revenue growth is projected to be slower than inflation because of the increased efficiency of newer vehicles. Additionally, state law restricts fuel taxes to be indexed for inflation, further limiting revenue growth. Pinellas County's population growth is expected to be minimal through the forecast period, potentially limiting the overall increase in fuel consumption as well. Because the projected inflationary increases to operating and personnel costs continue to exceed the anticipated growth in revenue, it will be necessary to either reduce the current level of service, increase revenues above their current projected levels, or a combination of both.
So, Madam Chair, I don't know if you know, but when are we going to talk about this?
Well, we've talked about it a little, and that's when we come around and we were talking about it, we know that we need about 3.5 cents of the nickel that is left. And so how we're going to do that is a bigger conversation with our partner agency. So we began those discussions. We're going to bring that back into a transportation workshop, probably April, May time period.
That's what I was looking for, because several of us sit on those other partners that you're
Right.
talking about, and we keep getting asked, or at least I do, well, when are you going to have that conversation? Because they're all trying to plan as well. Hurry up.
I will certainly say that when I get that information back from those partners that I love to work with, then I'll be happy to move some of those along. So
And we will be happy to help move that along, won't we, commissioners?
I'll be reaching out to them directly.
Quick question.
You're-
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
There's 5 cents available.
Correct.
3.5 that we need.
Correct.
To keep maintaining what we have.
Yes.
We're talking about the additional 1.5.
Yes, or some combination.
Understand.
There are other things that we could do to free up money to be able to put, and that's kind of that bigger picture. Something that the commission directed. We've looked at those. We have different ideas, and so the idea though being, where do we want to go as a transportation system? Transit, roads, everything. And then when we have a workshop, we can say, here are the available options, funding sources, and here are different levels of service. Because the key to it being, what do we want to accomplish with these transit ideas?
So
And so if we can bring those together and then we put those up on a board, now we can have a fruitful discussion.
And so none of the gas tax that we currently collect, or any that's remaining, is indexed at all locally, right?
The states is, not the locals.
Right, and I think you made the comment, Commissioner Peters, that you didn't see an appetite for that conversation up there? I mean, based on your last year, or, I don't want to put words in your mouth, I'm talking about on the indexing piece. No? Never mind. Maybe.
I'm not sure if I commented specifically on the indexing.
Okay.
The appetite.
Then I apologize for that. I thought I'd heard you say that. So so that's part of our ask, I am assuming, our continued discussion with our legislators.
And all the partner agencies should be looking at that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because it seemed like that was,
You're kind of outside that window for, if you haven't already
because that was a big piece.
advanced it.
Right,
a
That
little.
was-
but perhaps, I hate to keep pointing at Brian, but you're up there, you're in touch with them. What do you have to say about that? Because we can't really ask for new stuff right at this point in time.
Correct, Brian Lowak, Intergovernmental Liaison. As I believe Commissioner Peters was going to say, specifically related to that tax, that discussion hasn't been had. I can tell you that the appetite in Tallahassee is to not increase any local revenues above what they're at now. This has continued to be a priority of not only local governments, Florida Association of Counties, League of Cities. This is nothing new, so they're well aware of the desire.
And they don't care.
And Madam Chair, what I can tell you is the state and DOT count on this revenue too, and DOT is seeing that same decline that we are. And so it's an issue that the state is going to have to address the infrastructure needs for the state of Florida. So although the legislature doesn't have an appetite for allowing for tax increase, especially after what Charlie sent us from Senator Lee, makes it very clear they want to stifle our ability to raise taxes, they're going to have to deal with the gas tax and some other issues that also fund the state's initiatives. And when they finally get to that point, because DOT has been asking them for several years, and under this new administration, we may be at the point where the conversation will be had. And that's when we really have to be aware and at the table, because when they make those decisions to fund the rest of the state's infrastructure, we need to be at the table so that we have our share as well. But they're going to have to come up with a solution soon.
Oh, yeah, but they'll give the solution to us.
Well, that's likely true, but they still have to do state roads and they have to fund it. And the state DOT has been funded through that same gas tax. And they're seeing the declines as well. So they have the same issue. So it's going to have to be addressed.
But those taxes are indexed, right?
Commissioner Welch?
Yeah, the indexing has been part of our legislative platform and facts for some time. And I just think we need to keep hammering away at it, but it is a declining revenue source, just like impact fees.
Yep.
So, I look forward to that conversation, but I'm not, you mentioned these other organizations that are depending on the tax. It's not a silver bullet.
I know.
And, when you look at this, one of my questions would be, if we get the 3.5 cents, how far does it keep the Transportation Trust Fund in balance? We're going into deficit in FY22 now. How much time does the 3.5 cents buy us is one question I would have. The second one would be,
It pushed us out beyond 2024, 25. It went out for a significant time. I don't remember the
so
exact
four
date.
or 5 years.
I think it was longer than that, but I would defer.
Well, I'd like to get that info.
I don't remember.
But the other thing is, historically, was a split 60-40 with the cities?
Yeah.
So 3.5 is more than 60, if my math is right.
That was including the split.
So that's already
That was
giving the
baked
cities
in.
their
Yeah,
allocation.
yes. Mhm.
So how much is, okay, after the cities and after our 3.5, how much is available?
1.5.
Still 1.5. Just how
Cities
you
already
get
have
split.
their
That would-
40%.
Correct.
Okay.
That was in Raheem's analysis that we presented back when we did the thing for over at the college.
Okay, well, I need to pull that up. Because these are countywide issues that we're talking about.
Right.
And
Well,
I don't think it's unreasonable to ask the cities to also contribute a part of their.
and that's part of that
portion
larger
to fund it.
transportation
So-
piece. So understanding that, you're exactly right. There could be a bigger conversation about how we reach regional goals.
Okay. Well, did you send us the schedule that Raheem referenced at the summit? The schedule, the spreadsheet that broke out the allocation? If not, I'd like to get a copy of it.
Have it, but I don't recall where.
I don't have it.
I have it. I mean, I've seen it.
I just want to work through the numbers and understand.
We can
Thank you.
resend it. We'll resend it.
Thank you.
I have it already. Dave, did you have something?
Well, as you can see from this chart, the forecast shows reserves are exhausted in the Transportation Trust Fund in early FY22. We would like to remind everybody that that our Citizens Guide to the Budget website includes some very helpful information on the Pinellas County budget, including the 6-year forecast, which we just presented, a video from all budget-related meetings, presentations, and handouts from the meetings, and other helpful information such as the budget document, the budget calendar, how the budget process works, trim notice information, and other types of information. This concludes our presentation. I want to thank everyone at OMB who's helped with this, and then our department partners as well.
Thank you.
Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Good job.
Further questions?
I did have a question going back to the reserves. Since this document is searchable, I was able to search for Irma Berry and find it. I appreciate that. So on page 5, you've got in the footnote expenditures for Hurricane Irma 13.2 million. And then under revenues, you've got reimbursement from Irma, 2 million in FY18 and 17.6 in FY19.
Yes.
So was it a net cost to us, or did we?
Yes, the way the reimbursement would work is the federal government would reimburse 75% of allowable expenses. The state would do another 12.5%, and then we would be responsible for the remaining 12.5%. Most of the expenses were incurred in FY17.
So they're not showing up.
They're
in
not
that?
on this.
Okay.
And reimbursements take a while. We're very early in the reimbursement
So
process.
was it a net gain or loss to the county in terms of our reserves, or was it 100% reimbursed?
We would still be responsible for the 12.5% plus any expenditures that are not reimbursement eligible. So it's not a gain, obviously, but.
What the impact to our reserves was is really my question.
There's a temporary impact to reserves, so the total cost across all the funds that we saw from Hurricane Irma was upwards of $20 million. We expect to get a majority of that back, but as Jim said, and as we've experienced previously, and as we've talked about with this board, and you've talked about with the state legislation or delegation, it's a painful process. It's probably the nice way to say it.
And we're still at the 15% level, even having not been totally reimbursed yet.
But that is partially based on an assumption that we're going to get that $17.6 million back in fiscal 19.
Okay.
Now, based on the pace that we're getting it back, I'd say that that's probably not going to happen. We'll probably have to defer that out into FY20 and potentially beyond that.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Jim.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, next thing is doing things.
Madam Chair,
I'm sorry.
would it
Chair
be
Peters?
possible, only because I'm new, but the page on 11, it's got the general fund forecast. Is there any way I can get, like you did on the one page, you went back to 97? I'm interested in the reserves, the expenditures, and the revenues, but farther back. Is there any way I could get that from staff?
Bill?
On page 11, you have the general fund forecast, right? You have from FY 20 to 25, and it shows the reserves, expenditures, and revenues projected. But on the one slide on 7, that gave us from FY 97 to 19, is that research? That's taxable value and growth that you gave us. But what I was interested in, the reserves and expenditures and revenue brought in for that kind of, like this timeline. But for what you have on page 11, what the actuals were. So on page 11, you've got the reserves, expenditures, revenues projected. Could we have like 10-year history of what it was?
Sure.
I'd appreciate it if you can get that to me because I just don't know what it was.
Okay.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
No problem.
Well, maybe you could give it to all of us if you're going to give
Yes,
it
please.
to Peter.
We'll give everything to everybody.
All the time.
Very good.
No favorites.
Smart.
Just kidding.
Okay, and then the last thing we have, under doing things, this is linking Lowman. This month, the video, we have a video highlight of the planning department's work on linking Lowman mobility program for the Lowman community. They recently, as part of the Complete Streets process, they rolled this out to the Lowman community, to the residents. It highlights some of the planned transportation improvements that aim to improve economic opportunity and quality of life in Lowman. And we have a video to play for you.
In the Lowman area of Pinellas County, only 30% of the streets have sidewalks, and there aren't many bike and walking trails. Yet, many people in the community bike, walk, or take the bus to get from place to place, since a lot of residents don't own a car. So Pinellas County is working to improve the overall transportation system in Lowman with a plan that we call Linking Lowman.
Linking Lowman is based on a concept called Complete Streets. The idea is that roads shouldn't be designed with just cars in mind. Everybody should have safe access to the places they need to go, regardless of age, ability, or their method of transportation.
Lowman residents recently weighed in on the future of their community at the Pinellas County Planning Department's Linking Lowman workshop. Linda McGaughy, a longtime resident, says she knows what improvement she'd like to see.
The traffic lights is the main aggravation for me.
Okay.
But on a daily basis.
Linking Lellman lays out a wide range of projects to continue to improve Lellman's transportation system.
Linking Lealman identified a lot of projects the county could work on, so we grouped them by how long they would take to do. Some are relatively easy and can get done over the next few years, but others are longer term.
One quick win project is a walking and biking path on 43rd Street North to connect 58th and 62nd Avenues. This path would help kids in the area get to Lellman Elementary School safely. Another quick win project is to improve safety at the crosswalk at 54th Avenue North at 37th Street at the corner of Lellman Park. One way we could do this is by moving the pedestrian activated signal and adding signs to make the crosswalk more visible. And a high priority is to reduce crashes along 54th Avenue North.
54th Avenue North between 34th and 49th Streets has a lot of problems. People speed, there's no left turn lane east of the railroad track, lighting is poor, the sidewalks are narrow, and there's no safe place to bike.
These are just a few of the projects included in Linking Lellman. Lellman residents like Linda McGahee look forward to the changes.
It probably would attract more businesses. And, I mean, we have foot traffic. I see people walking 54th all the time.
The full plan is on the website at pinellascounty.org/plan. In Pinellas County, we're doing things to make transportation safer and easier in Lellman.
Safety Harbor. Very
That
good.
concludes my report.
Okay, excellent. We're now on to citizens to be heard. You have 3 minutes to share your thoughts with us. And first person is Sarah Rosado.
Resident of Safety Harbor. Hello. I'm glad we got into the transportation because that's what I'm here for. How are you, commissioners? I left every one of you a message. I don't know if you received it, but I never got a call back. And I'm particularly upset with Mr. Eggers, who represents us, and we are now risking losing the one and only bus that we now have, which is a connector. Back in 2016, we used to have the 62 that would take us from Tyrone to Eastlake. Since then, we were given a connector that used to take us from Safety Harbor Spa to the mall, and now it only goes from Felipe Park to the mall, but the last one is 450. I struggle every day. I'm a bilingual assistant at a school. I struggle every day to go to work and to come home, and now I'm being told that they're going to cut the bus from Safety Harbor. I don't know, in Safety Harbor, all you see is construction. They're building new things, but we have no transportation. I'm beside myself. I've been to PSTA. That's why I'm here, because they told me unless they got money from the commissioners, nothing was going to be done. So I'm here pleading to every single one of you not to take the one and only connector that we have, which doesn't have a lot of availability. It runs from 7:15 to 4:50 in the evening. I have to transfer from the 62 on the mall to struggle to get the 450 to get home. It has left me many times. I've had to walk 3 miles from the mall home. PSTA has tried to work with me. They do tell the bus to wait because it's the last one of the day, but it hasn't worked for me. I'm beside myself, and now you're saying you're gonna link Lealman, whatever that is, and you're gonna cut us off in Safety Harbor. Do you have anything to say, Mr. Eggers?
Well, I will, can I respond?
You are our representative, that's why I'm addressing
Yeah.
you.
We're all your representatives.
But they said that the one for Safety Harbor was
Yeah.
Mr. Eggers.
Yeah, well, we all represent
I
you, and
know.
I also sit on PSTA.
I know you do, and so does Ms. Long and Ms. Steele.
No.
Steele, or Ms. somebody,
Commissioner
Mr. Justice. It
Gerard.
doesn't matter, I'm just upset because this is messing with my livelihood, my independence. I don't wanna have to depend on anybody. I can't afford to get an Uber in and out of Safety Harbor. I don't drive, I'm originally from New York, so it's not that I don't have a license or a DUI, I can't afford a car, I don't drive.
Can I respond?
Sure.
First of all, my apologies for not getting back to you.
That's okay.
And that's no excuse for that. But what I would say is that I have a lot of concerns about transportation or lack thereof in North County.
right.
There's very
There's
little,
little,
and the North County residents all pay their PSTA taxes. just like many do. So I'm really working hard. We're working hard to try to preserve the little bit of transportation that we do have. And so they'll be talking about ways to get more money for more transportation projects, and they'll need your vote then. So what I'm saying is they better be delivering on some services. So I'm going to keep fighting for that little bit of service that we have left up there.
Forgive me if I don't have any confidence, because I saw this happening in October of 2016, and it's only gone downhill since then.
Well, the funding for PSTA unfortunately has gone down too, and we're
that
going to.
upsets
And
me
it's
because Mr. Miller just got a 4% raise increase.
Yeah.
He makes $192,000. That's shameful.
Well, that's
you
a
know.
different
I know,
issue.
that's another meeting,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
took a half a day off of work without pay
Yeah.
because I thought it was necessary for me to be here. And I'm sorry if I seem aggressive,
No,
but
no,
I'm
it's
really
fine.
upset because I'm the only voice in Safety Harbor. I'm not the only passenger. So if ridership seems low, it's because nobody's speaking up. But I am going to, and me and my neighbor have gone to PSTA meetings. We signed petitions. We did everything that we could on our part, but we haven't had any results. And now we're faced with losing everything.
Well, I'd like, if you don't mind, send me a copy of that petition that shows the
Sure,
number of folks that are
sure,
supporting that
I mean,
route.
it's been back since 2016, so we'll just have to start
That's
a new
fine.
one. We could start a new one. It's okay.
No, whatever. I'd just like to get an idea what that demand is, because any information that we have that encourages more
I mean,
use.
and there is ridership. I know that Bob from Internal Affairs and PSTA has been working with me. I've worked with the schedulers. I mean, I don't want to be a nuisance. All I want to do is get to work and come home. I don't want to have to be a statistic.
Yeah, it's a pretty simple request, you just want to work.
And just because
So
it's Safety Harbor, they think everybody has money, has cars. All they're doing is constructing, and every little piece of area, all you're seeing is high-rises, houses, but we're not going to have any transportation. How are you going to get people to come into the town if they don't have that availability?
Thank you.
Not like Dunedin that has 4 buses, trolleys, and a connector. We have one bus that takes us from A to Z, and that's it. And now they want to take that away.
Well, it's not done.
It's not
We're-
water under the bridge, but they're talking
I
June,
know,
Mr.
and whenever they
Eggers,
talk,
And I saw
yeah.
this happen
I
when
know,
they took the
I hear you.
62. So I can't afford to wait till June because I need to work.
I appreciate your thought.
And Mr. Welch, I want to tell you that your office is wonderful. Your assistant gave me a call back, and she was very thorough. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
She was the only one that responded to me.
She's an angel.
She sure is, and please tell her I said so. She even gave me a call back to confirm that it wasn't on the 21st, that it was the 26th.
Can I make one comment, though, Madam Chair?
Please.
I just have to tell you, nobody talks more and advocates harder for North County than Dave Eggers. So I just want to say
I
that for the
appreciate it.
record.
I'm not taking it
okay.
personal, but
But
I
I'm
know
just saying that.
I was
I'm just
told
letting you know
He's
that.
the one that's our
Let me
representative.
ask the other question. though.
Sure.
Was it the PSTA board that said that the routes go away unless the county commission
Yes.
provides money?
Yes, it was from the.
No,
That's
no,
what they're
no.
saying.
Well, I'm-
Well, I don't know if it's the board or somebody within PSTA said unless they get funding, they're gonna have to make cuts, and the Safety Harbor Connector is the first one on the list.
So could I respond to you as well? Because I have a response.
I just want to make sure I understood
Yeah,
that.
I was told by PSTA, we can't do anything, you need to go talk to the city commissioners, they have the power.
And when is this cut supposed to happen?
In June. It's every 4 months that they do changes. Every 4 months, we have agony because we don't know what's gonna happen. So they just changed in February, they're gonna change again in June, and it's just not looking good for us.
Well, I can just speak for myself. This board has always been very cooperative and supportive of PSTA. If we get an ask, we certainly will look at it and see if it makes sense. We
And
were just
there is-
talking about the
there is
gas
the
taxes,
need.
as you
Yeah.
heard. But PSTA, and I used to serve on that board, has some systemic problems. They're at their cap. Not all communities
know.
even
Can I tell you
pay
one of the
into it.
things?
Well, let me
Yeah,
finish.
go ahead.
Not all communities even pay into PSTA.
I know.
And so, they've got a lot of issues they're dealing with. But one of the things that touched me most when I was a board member is when someone like you came and said, how do I get to work? We're looking at cutting Route 90, cutting Route 440. So everybody is working
No,
together
they
on
are.
it.
They're
but
great, but they're the
I
low.
appreciate you bringing the
We
issue
need the
forward.
higher ups to do something because
Cool.
they can't do anything. And then the fact that, I mean, I know I work for Pinellas County Schools. We don't ride for free. But if you work for P-TECH, USF, if you work for United Maintenance Workers, yeah, they pay into it and they get rides, but it just doesn't seem fair. All we need is a bus. Why take that away when that's all we have? Thank you for your consideration.
Madam Chair, could I just, I'm the chair of PSTA, and I want you to know that I had a meeting just yesterday with the CEO of PSTA, and my question to him was, look, if you ask for these dollars that you need, and you knew that you were going to receive them and that we were working on solutions, would you still be making these cuts? And his answer was no. So I hear your frustration. I came here from New York City. I know the difference when you have good public transportation.
And I can understand that. I'll work around
Every
it.
one of us that are on that board, and there are 4 of them from this commission that sit on it, all of the board members hear these stories. You are not the only one. This is why those of us that work on the transportation issue have become so passionate about it, because it is touching and impacting people's lives. On top of that, we have some very clear strategies. Look at my notes. These are from yesterday, which I haven't had an opportunity to share with my colleagues yet. But these are some of the things that we're thinking about, and I know that we're going to find the answers. We're smart people. We can make this happen. Here's the thing. The citizens have got to be aware of the impact that it's having on other people that maybe don't have the same resources that a lot of other people do. And so this is an issue, I just have to say, everyone here has heard me say it. We are 40 years behind the times in terms of addressing this issue. And now is the time to stop talking and start putting things in place to help our
I
citizens.
know, I almost feel like it's a civil war, the North versus the South.
It's not the North versus the South,
But they
it's
get
just,
everything. They have all kind of buses, availability.
but we can talk offline, but I promise you, we are going to solve these
And I
issues.
promise you, I'm gonna keep fighting, because I'm the
You
voice
do,
of
you,
Safety
the
Harbor.
squeaky
When I
wheel
call
gets the grease.
PSTA thinks I'm the only rider in Safety Harbor, because
No,
I'm
no.
the one that speaks
They
up.
know you're
Yeah.
not.
Okay, thank you.
Why don't we, I think there's another venue in which this discussion needs to take
I will
place.
make it to a PSTA board member.
I think
meeting
you-
too.
a PSTA forum would be a
I just have to figure out how to
better-
get to St. Pete and take the transportation to get me there.
Right.
But I'll figure it out.
Right,
One quick,
quickly,
I'm going to
Mr.
close
Wright.
real quick with this comment, because I just texted my assistant who did speak with you.
Yeah, she did,
Okay,
but
so I
you
just
know-
want to make sure that you understood that my office did get back to you.
know,
But,
she
but,
said
but,
that
se-
it's
but hold
likely
on.
concern.
But secondly, the issue of North County is a big deal. And it's a big deal in Safety Harbor, it's a big deal in East Lake. And so that issue of PSTA employees saying what you said is true. They are saying to come here. So we're going to change that conversation, but it has to be constructive, and we have to get things done so that folks can get to work. It's that simple. So I agree, I hear your pain.
I spoke to your sister, she told me, oh yeah, we've gotten other calls from East Lake.
Yeah.
But not from Safety Harbor. I
So,
think
thank
they're more
you.
concerned.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have Judith Schneider, basically on the same subject.
Thank you for listening to us.
Hello.
PSTA commissioners that are helping us. And thank you for your empathy and that you were trying to work with us. That's
We-
really nice to hear that because we didn't know. Yes, 3 years ago, I went to the PSDA with 100 signatures just from Safety Harbor, you know, because we pay taxes. Right under the school taxes is the transportation taxes. So if you're taking that bus away, why am I paying taxes? How much would you lose for Safety Harbor without paying taxes? So, okay, so I just wanted to bring that up. I'm 72, and I love having the bus. Even though I come from Brooklyn, and I'm used to it from years ago, going to work as a legal secretary and going into the city and the trains, but I adjusted, no problem. And again, I love the buses. It takes me to Enterprise. I do all my shopping. I don't need anybody to depend on me to take me anywhere. But I have a suggestion. We did have the 62, and it was wonderful. It goes from Tyrone all the way. It took us through Safety Harbor and to Palm Harbor and back. By taking that away, you added another bus. So now, this is not cost effective. Why are we paying for this connector when the 62 was all we needed? So you're paying more drivers, right? And you're paying gas, and you're paying all the repairs for this connector. And this connector does 11 a day. That's almost like 66 in a week of extra rides that we just had the 162. So that was just a suggestion. The other one might be you don't need 11 rides in a day, maybe 2 for the working people, 2 for 72-year-olds like me who need to get to the grocery, to the doctor. And even my doctor says, I want you to keep working out. You need to get to the gym. I literally go to the gym 6 days a week. Can you tell? Thanks to my doctor. You take that away, I'm just going to wilt away for the next, hopefully, 10 or 20 years. And that's pretty much what I wanted to say. That was just about covered it because she covered all the working people, and I'm covering over 65. And we don't have to depend on anybody. And that was all. I think I covered it all. Of course, it takes me everywhere I told you, and all the dentists, the doctors, and even my dog. Thank you, PSTA.
Thank you. Thank you. Justin Heller about county towing rates.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Justin. I'm a general manager with the local towing company. I'm here to actually ask for either some way we can get onto an agenda, something to talk about the rates that the county commissioners set. Think about 18 years ago, and you bought a product. That product is probably not the same price nowadays, whether it was gas, homes, whatever. The rates that were set by Board of County Commissioners have not changed in that amount of time. We have been trying diligently with getting with the city, with the counties, with everybody we can think of. Every time we call, we get told that our requests and our petitions are sitting on the county attorney's desk. But here we are years later, nothing's changed. There's a lot of growth coming in Pinellas County. We are a giant industry that employs a lot of veterans, a lot of ex-law enforcement. With all the growth that's coming in Pinellas County, we would like to be a part of that growth. But with the fact that we're losing $15,000 a month in comparison to business in Hillsborough County, that's going to be a really hard growth to do. So unless we get something that can reflect like your neighbors, Hillsborough, Manatee, all the other counties, we're going to start running into an issue here where you're not going to be having the big companies with the software like we have in the training, and you're going to have companies that are going to come in and be paying low wages. They're not going to be having the right insurance policies. You're going to be having multifamily communities no longer being fair housing compliant, all because the rates have not been adjusted to match with what is happening with the economy. I mean, everything else, milk, you name it, it all goes up. Our rates haven't. So I mean, if you compare Hillsborough County to Pinellas County, there is literally a $15,000 a month loss that our company is incurring every month, month over month. So all we ask is that to stop getting told that the letters are on the attorney's desk. And we would like to actually be listened to, help you guys come up with a new fee schedule that benefits all the companies in the county. That way, everybody's happy, everybody's employed, and multifamily communities are still fair housing compliant.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
We had this conversation
Ed.
with the towers a couple years ago, and I think it might be wise if we ask the county administrator to give us an update on where we are, or I don't remember the details of what we did. I just remember
Had a lengthy discussion about it.
there were lots of towers that were here from all over the state. Remember that?
Yep.
We were here for a while.
Let's see if we can pull back up the minutes and try to do a review of it.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
But thank you for coming today, Justin. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Lenore Faulkner.
Good afternoon, Commissioner Seal and your distinguished commission. Thank you for your service and low-cost housing. I am Lenore Faulkner from Madeira Beach, fighting for education excellence for all students, especially Pinellas Park Middle School and Johns Hopkins Middle School. As a 2-year member of St. Petersburg Chamber of Commerce, I always focus on how the poor children of St. Petersburg are being served. Why did the school system close Southside Middle and A School? Why did the school system replace the staff in 5 elementary schools with new teachers? They call it close to home 21st century schools. The St. Petersburg Times call it failure factories. 5 F schools, little children out of control. Today, my speech is about Black History Month. I am covering 3 places: St. Petersburg, Florida, Montgomery, Alabama, and Mbala, Uganda. Yes, the school system won a Pulitzer Prize. Congressman, for that article, Congressman Castor and the Secretary of Education came down from Washington, D.C. and visited the problem. There are no answers from the school board. In 1968, I moved to Auburn, Alabama for 3 years. I drove 30 miles to a mill town 20 miles from Montgomery. I taught math and science in a white school. In June of 1970, the system went to court concerning segregation. The superintendent said there was no problem and completely integrated by September. I taught at Southside, which was now the black and white school of the city. 100% integration. 48 years ago, Martin Luther King's dream, and St. Petersburg, Florida, Martin Luther King's nightmare. In 2006, I was taking a course in Ephesians at Blessed Sacrament. A priest from Africa was also enrolled. We met and I brought him 300 periodic tables. He asked for chemistry books. I brought 12. He sent a thank you note from Uganda and the students at the Catholic University of Nairobi, Kenya. In 2011, the veterans in Tampa Hospital were honored to have a chaplain from Uganda. We became best friends because my brother is a priest. On the first Feast of Friends, anyway, I adopted 300 children in Uganda. And when I was here for a meeting, they had a meeting at the hospital, and Father Peter died at the age of 55. So, thank you, guys.
Thank you. David Ballard Geddes.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. David Ballard Geddes, Jr. I live on Georgia Avenue in Palm Harbor. The Supreme Justice of this land has acted erroneously, improperly, exercising court in an attempt to formulate logic to fabricate the birthing of an it. Roe versus Wade does not apply to the 14th Amendment and the birthing of an it. It is impossible to adjudicate law based on a pronoun. Constitutionally intercoursed therein, birthed as a political body, as a 14th Amendment water jurisdiction thereof, encompassing both therein and of the state, the underlying powers birthed, intended on rising thereof as fact, as a water jurisdiction, as applied, as constituted, as declared, as intercoursed, as embodied therein, birthed thereof as an it, politically, constitutionally, this government, all of it, is at an impasse and is soon to hit a wall of separation to be in particular. It's a heresy to think that this Constitution, our Constitution, the mere fact that this Constitution is being used as a medium to gestate the birthing of it as a de facto government in support of water despots and tyrants as declared absent Christianity, birthing, giving rise to a new political structure thereof claimed as artificial in Statute 373.019, Section 15, hoping to double down and reconstitute itself in Statute 373.715 as a watershed operation, selling the county to the Water District in Resolution 95-286, Section 4C-2, and Ordinance 97-103, Section 126-509, attempting to usurp itself using a fee simple title application in Statute 380.08 and 127.01, sold as a 30-year foreclosure process in Statute 180.08 and 170.09, giving rise to the Commonwealth government of medieval England as water despots and tyrants. The entire government, both therein and thereof, as legislated, is to be marshaled on high seas crimes of masquerading as government as this, our government, and its underlying powers intended birth thereof in the 14th Amendment, is nothing less than a puppet government of the British trying to double down on its game. Thank you.
Mark Clutho?
He left.
Is he no longer here?
He left a while ago.
Okay, thank you. Greg Pound?
Thank you, Commissioners. I'm going to give several links as I share what I have to say. You can look them up to verify what I'm saying, whether it's fact or not. I'd like to start off with this issue of Google white Americans' births below replacement level in every state. I was up in Tallahassee on the 19th, and you can go to the Judiciary Committee. Robert Guattieri was speaking there. He opens up his statement on line 9. He was the first speaker. He says, "I'm the sheriff of Pinellas County and also I'm an attorney." Okay, this is the Constitution. We have a separation of power clause. I want to know why people in our government don't even know the Constitution, which is the core of our very government, the core of our laws. Now, if you go and watch, you Google Black Hebrew Israelites call for genocide of whites. They do not call for the genocide of whites. You watch this news report, you can Google it and watch it. All they're doing as prophets is telling what is going to come and what's coming on the judgment of the white culture for what they've done to people, children, families, sodomite children, trying to turn men into Caitlyn Jenners. This whole generation of reprobates now we've got running what is called America, who sold the truth out. The white culture has sold the truth out for money. There's no more check and balance in our government and our leaders. The executive, judicial branch, and legislative branch has all been filled with people who sold the system out for money. And we've got if you were to go and take a look at what it says in the Federalist Papers, James Madison in 47, if you look at Federalist Papers 47, why we have the separation of power clause to protect our rights and our liberties. And we've got a system now that's so corrupt and so out of control, it's going to take people who's going to be honest. And you guys aren't doing it. I mean, we've got illegal commissioners, illegal sheriff, we got massive fraud and corruption, we got reprobates running our system. This verse comes out of Jeremiah chapter 21, verse 14. "And I will punish you according to the fruit of your doing, saith Yahweh. And I will kindle a fire in the forest thereof, and it shall devour all the things round about it." He's going to burn this. He's going to give people. He's going to bring the heat on people, and it can come in all different forms and fashions of your judgment that's coming for the things that you've done. When you fix it so you can't even get a jury trial of your own children in the state of Florida, and you got all these pedophiles and sodomites running the state of Florida. The white man has fixed it so you can't even get a jury trial over your own little children. And you have the people get them over cats and dogs in the state of Florida. But you got all these pedophiles in DCF running the Department of Children and Family and raping and molesting children and all these sodomites. And so you people are going to pay. You're not going to get away. The Creator's going to listen. The Creator is not a man and he's not a woman. The Bible says God is spirit, Yahweh is spirit, and those who worship him in spirit and truth.
Okay, that is the end of our citizens to be heard. Moving on to agenda item 33, our federal legislative priorities.
It is outlined, we have discussed it, and it is here with a recommendation for approval.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Justice, second by Commissioner Welch. Are there any questions or comments?
I'm going to give Brian kudos.
Yes, very well done. Okay, open up the voting ballot, please.
I'm voting yes. Here we go. Okay, thank you. I didn't think it was good.
Oops.
What is that? What?
Was it?
It was 7-0.
Was it 7? Okay. Unanimous then. Moving on to 34, appointment, Commissioner Eggers?
Yeah, just to talk to a number of people, got a number of different recommendations, and decided to recommend Ross Silvers as a representative to the board.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Eggers, motion, and Commissioner Welch, second? Okay, let's have the voting cards, please. Okay, unanimous. Very good. Next is the appointment to the Pinellas County Housing Finance Authority. And I guess, I know we don't always do this, but I am going to put a plug in for Paul Burrows. There's only 2 that are qualified. Okay, we'll move on to agenda item 36, which is County Commission new business items. And Commissioner Justice, you had an item that you wanted to bring up to us.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I sit on a board with Judge Jarotka, and he is kind of the lead of our law library currently. And he was telling me that in the past, the County Commission had had a representative serve on the board, I guess an ex officio. And so at some point, the commissioner came off the board for reasons he wasn't sure of why the history of it. But he wanted to check and see what the interest was in having a commissioner serve on the board. There's a relationship there, obviously. And it wouldn't be our appointment. It would just be us expressing interest. Chief Judge Rodnalina would actually make the appointment. Just wanted to bring it to the board for your consideration.
Okay. So would this be, so you said the judge would make the appointment?
So this was, yes, this would basically be us saying we would be interested in having a commissioner serve, and then he would make the appointment.
I mean, I'm fine with that, Commissioner
You
Welch.
willing to serve, Commissioner Justice?
Sure.
Okay.
Full support.
But I know how much the judge thinks of you, and he might appoint you. I will communicate that back to him.
Okay. Everybody in agreement? Okay, very good. All right, County Commission Board reports and miscellaneous. We will start with Commissioner Welch.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be brief. We have our BTS, Business Technology Services Board meeting tomorrow. Among the issues we'll talk about is our information security policy update, which will require security awareness training for every employee upon hire and then annually. Secondly, following up on your leadership, remember we had Dr. Valerie Brim from the school board here a few weeks ago, and I completed my first meeting with the new mentee at the great Lakewood High School this morning. So thank you for your leadership on mentoring, and glad to join our many county employees in mentoring students. And the last is an announcement, and I'm marking Barry down for this because he's already shown he can do chili contest. Maybe you can come to this one too, Madam Chair. March 15th, the Pinellas Park firefighters will have their MDA chili blaze at the Ingham Brothers Band Shell in Pinellas Park. Always a great time. Probably, you've been there, Commissioner Justice,
Yes, sir.
13, 14, 15 chilies you get to.
Oh, 26, 28.
Was it that many? And it's always a good time, and a lot of folks are riding their bikes out there, motorcycles, and maybe next time you can tour with
My stomach hurts
Barry on
just
his
thinking about
motorcycle for in-service day.
it. Oh, my gosh. It's getting scary.
Commissioner Long has already tried it, so that's all I have.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Peters.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And their judging of the barbecue is really good too, not just the chili. They do a great job. But I'm still doing tours, and I'm so appreciative of the county staff that have taken time out of their busy schedules. They have been really wonderful. So, thank you all to the staff that has taken time to help bring me up to speed. I'm not going to talk about the Tampa Bay water. I think I'll leave that for Commissioner Eggers. We are getting closer to a vote. I don't know how close, but we're getting closer. But I do want to tell you, I did meet with Operation PAR yesterday to talk about Marchman Acts and substance abuse. And what was really fascinating, and I would maybe get up with you, Commissioner Long, one day, she started talking about some of the public-private partnerships that PAR has started working on with people that are addicted. I got better clarification on our Marchman Acts and what the sheriff has done to help better treat people in the jail that are being Marchman Acted. We have a long way to go, but the public-private partnership with St. Anthony's is really interesting, and how they are getting people out of the hospital that have substance abuse issues, long-term intravenous drugs, but they end up on intravenous treatment for up to 3 weeks, and they only need the intravenous treatment every single day, but they're being hospitalized for 3 weeks, which is most indigent people, and it's costing the hospitals a significant amount of money. But the partnership, it's interesting to see the partnerships, which will be interesting, and as we move forward, how we work with these additional partners, because we can do a whole lot to keep healthcare costs down through these public-private partnerships and as we move forward. So one of these days I would like to get a bunch of information together for all of you and kind of map it all out on what's being done, because it's a big kind of monster. But I'm so grateful to Operation PAR and EMS and all the other agencies that have been taking time out of their busy schedule to meet with my staff as well. So it's exciting to see movement, because there hasn't been movement in this arena in a very long time. So thank you.
Commissioner Justice.
Thank you, Madam Chair. March 20th, the Historic Preservation Board will have our normal meeting at the Whitechapel in Palm Harbor, but also at 11 a.m. If you're around, you're welcome to join us for the dedication of the state historic marker that will be officially unveiled at the Whitechapel there in North County in Palm Harbor. Commissioner Eggers. Tampa Bay Estuary Board, I was elected as chair to serve for another 2-year term as chair of the board, and we'll be working with scheduling to bring our executive director, Mr. Sherwood, to the county commission meeting to do his annual return on investment. You'll see how well the money spent that we do invest in the Estuary Board is returning for us. Was out with Barbara at Walsingham the other day to get a full tour. I hadn't been in the Creative Pinellas facility. Hadn't been in there in a long time, so it was right before the event they had on Friday, so it was great to see the changes and the advancements we've made out there. And then it's been a busy few weeks. I've seen a lot of you at all the different events. The Beaches Chamber annual celebration, the Lellman Family Center luncheon, the restaurant and lodging officer installation, the Urban League annual luncheon, and the Citizens Alliance for Progress banquet Sunday. And I want to thank Mr. Burton for attending, I think, all of those, if not all of them, most of those, and getting out and about in the community. And then finally, I don't know if I'm stealing your thunder, but I did want to congratulate Mayor Kretikos and all of us, as TripAdvisor has rated Clearwater Beach #1 in America again.
Yep.
So
Right.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
That's great. Commissioner Gerard.
Well, I haven't done much in the last couple of weeks because I had surgery.
Why don't you have your arm?
Because you don't have to have a sling on your arm anymore 5 days after your surgery, because they don't like it to lock it.
Be restricted, probably.
Well, yeah, because you need to move it. Anyway, but it does hurt. Just so everybody knows. But yes, I did get to the Lillman luncheon and the law enforcement dinner. Thank you very much, Commissioner Long, for preserving that tradition. That was great. I went to the Phillies welcome dinner. Commissioner Seal was there, and nobody asked me about funding at all, not once. They were very nice.
You weren't at opening day where somebody made a remark.
Oh, really? Okay. That loses you 2 points right there, doesn't it? Do not throw us under the bus. But otherwise, yeah, I've missed a couple of meetings because I was laid up.
Thank you, and I'm glad you recovered successfully from your surgery.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Eggers.
Thank you. Yeah, there's quite a bit. I think what I'll do on the Forward Pinellas, I have a good summary sheet, an action sheet that I'll send you, and also the same with our TMA leadership group, kind of summarizing what's going on there. I don't really want to get into all of it. We did spend a lot of time at the Forward Pinellas talking about the alternate 19 corridor and discussing the cultural plan that's being done by MPO and the corridor study being done by DOT, and kind of bringing the two together for some discussions, further discussions, and potential identifying some funding sources, et cetera, to take alternate 19 and make some needed improvements along that corridor. So we had a lot of conversation about that at Forward Pinellas. We talked about our legislative position, our policy statement that was approved, a lot of the same things that we've been talking about, but some of those were stop distracted driving. There's some bills up there to make I guess make it complete using the cell phone completely hands-free. So, and I don't know how that's going to go this year, but certainly from a distraction standpoint, it seems to be a major cause of some of our accidents. Supporting urban agriculture, protecting trust funds, support transportation funding, the distracted driving, maintaining MPO authority for apportionment and structure. A lot of conversation about that. Some additional conversation about e-scooters that are coming to the area and how do we deal with that? And the state's going down one path that may be different than the one we want to use here. So trying to maintain, again, some I guess, home decision-making on that. So that was a big deal. And the one thing I did want to say is that under TampaBaySurveys.com, I hope people can get on there and take the survey. It's a pretty extended survey to talk about household demographics, origins, destinations of people, trying to get a feel for their travel patterns. So the goal is 3,000 to 6,000 people to respond to it. We'll see how that goes, but it really is important as we try to match service, whether it's transportation or transit, to what the folks really want done. So anyway, that's going to be an important survey. So anyway, I'll send this to everybody so that you can get a feel for that. Under the Citizen or Community Veterans Engagement Board, again, an awful lot of things, but I thought the one interesting thing was that the new Assistant VA Secretary for Accountability and Whistleblowing Protection, which was signed in 2 years ago, visited our board, and it was really interesting to hear the early successes that have, but their primary responsibility is to monitor upper level management. I don't know, 2 or 3 levels down at all the VA facilities in the country to make sure that our veterans are getting the service that they should be doing. And it's very interesting to see some of the different accountability issues that they're putting in place to make sure that folks not only do what they're supposed to be doing, but if they make recommendations and you don't follow them, why not? So there's some really good stuff going on to protect our veterans, and and a whole lot of other things that we talked about. Tampa Bay Water, as Commissioner Peter said, we have the CART put together pretty good in terms of the MOU has been pretty much agreed to. Our attorneys are going to bring that back to have the bigger discussion about, is the cart before the horse, or do we put the horse ahead of the cart, and have the discussion about whether we should even be considering it or not. But I think if we go down that path and vote to do it, it's ready to go, and I think we'll be doing something. But I think there's going to be a broader conversation. And in that vote, it takes a supermajority. So it'll be 6 votes to pass an MOU because it is you're granting some of our water rights, Tampa Bay Water's water rights, to the city of Tampa. So it's a larger ask if you're going to do that. So we'll see how that goes. I think in April we'll have that further discussion and probably an eventual vote. So, and Just real quick on, that's all the boards and committee that I wanted to say. Congratulations to Bob Ironsmith and the city of Dunedin for their 30th anniversary for their CRA. Had a nice event downtown. Chairman was there, spoke about the successes of CRAs in general, and I think Dunedin's done a good job with theirs over the years. I did also want to pass kudos along to Commissioner Janet for her work for the law enforcement or first responders. I think that was just a beautiful event, and the idea of what to do with going forward for sustainability I thought was great. So look forward to more conversation about that. The Blue Jays opening day was a success. They had a complete full house, but close, a lot of activity, and I was the catcher for the mayor's throw, which I told her to warm up, and of course she didn't because she's stubborn, and got halfway between home plate and the mound, and still didn't make it to the. And so anyway, we're gonna. But anyway, everybody applauded and said, "Great job, Mayor." But it was a decent throw. But it was a great day, a lot of good energy in the crowd, and a lot of good responses to the county's support to keeping the Blue Jays in Pinellas County and in the city of Dunedin. And finally, I don't want to leave it on a somber note, but I do think that I'm going to be having a chance to attend the Pinellas County Behavioral Health meeting this coming month. I talked with our health department director, and Yuli Cho said that the results of the suicide study that Baycare and USF is doing should be back in March. And that's going to be that would be an important conversation to be having with that group, because they were surprised at the numbers. And I was at a dinner last night, just having dinner with my family, and ran into a gentleman. I said, "How you doing?" He said, "Not good. I lost my son 2 weeks ago, probably 30-something, a suicide." Talked to the restaurateur, and she said, just in the last month, I have 3 people that regularly attend there for different reasons, all different reasons, had lost their son or father, in one case, father, to suicides. And then we heard about the Pasco County deputy who, young woman with children and grandchildren. I mean, she didn't look like she was old enough to have grandchildren, but she had grandchildren, took her own life. So we have a real issue, a real problem. In most cases, it's an awareness issue, but it's beyond that. There's trigger issues that are actually causing the occurrence. So we're going to try to learn more about those terrible decisions that folks are making, and have more conversation, and perhaps even continue a discussion about a pilot in one of our communities. So anyway, sorry for the extended comments, but thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Long? Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to try to be really brief because there's a lot going on, as you all know. I also had an opportunity to go out to Creative Pinellas and visit everything they're doing out there, and I have to give a lot of credit to Commissioner Seal for how hard she has worked on moving that all forward. And so some big difference from the days when I first came to the county commission. So thank you for that. And
so you see what's going to happen next.
Seatbelts.
All right, well, just make sure we have our seatbelts on. I do want to thank the kind words that you've shared with regard to the John Maroney event last Saturday. It was not easy, and thank you to Brian for being so helpful. With that said, a couple of you, Brian, Ken, that are on the board, you should have received today an update on where we are with the foundation and getting all of that together. Okay, maybe you can skip me and I'll do my report later. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just quickly on my end, I have 3 things. One is the search committee has launched the website for the Juvenile Welfare Board for finding a new executive director. You can go on the Juvenile Welfare Board website to read the job description and the attributes that we're looking for. we are establishing like a March 20th deadline in hopes that we will have good candidates and can move forward. That will also push up the process so that possibly we could be done by June, July time period rather than October. So the second thing is, and I thought Commissioner Long, you would talk about the TBARTA board meeting, but I have the information here. We recommended 2 3-year base contracts with WSP USA and Valerian Group. Will allow TBARTA to access expertise of 2 firms in the areas of architectural, engineering, planning, operational efficiency, and marketing services. We also are redesigning the website, and FKQ is doing that for us. And finally, we had, and it went on quite a while, the federal lobbyist solicitation presentations. And we heard the top 3 ranked firms, and we basically passed a motion to allow all 3 firms to come back and give their best and final offers to their services and the cost for that. It was really interesting. Seldom do we ever get the opportunity to interview consultants before the selection's made. So it was definitely interesting. So the final thing is for the canvassing board. I think Cindy was sending it out to your assistants, but Janet, Commissioner Long is the primary member, but I need an alternate and someone who has not publicly endorsed anybody in the current elections in Bel Air Beach, Gulfport, Indian Rocks Beach, Madeira Beach, Oldsmar, and Tarpon Springs. So is it possible that either Commissioner Welch, Peters, or Gerard, that any of you could serve in that capacity?
I've endorsed somebody in Gulfport.
What's that?
I've endorsed somebody in Gulfport.
Okay,
And
all
I
right.
endorse somebody
I
in
believe
Oldsmar.
I have as well. And
You've endorsed somebody as well?
In Oldsmar.
Okay. And how about you, Commissioner Welch?
I've endorsed as well.
Okay.
If
Can you reach out to Herb?
Huh?
Can they reach out to Herb Olson?
Well, Jewel and I will have a discussion about that later then. Okay. That's all from me. We will take a recess and come back at 6 o'clock.